Chapter 261. When Anderson called out Bronsky's name, Nick's desperate voice stopped him. "No. Anderson, you idiot!" Following that, a string of obscenities that only the worst gangsters in Brook would use came out from the mouth of this famous man. Nick displayed his talent as a black man. In a short span of time, he had cursed Anderson's entire family, even tracing back to his deceased grandparents and the dog he used to raise when he was a child. But it was useless except to vent his anger. Bronsky's body had begun to swell. His muscles bulged like steel wires, bursting out of his military uniform. His green veins were like thick ropes, wrapping around Bronsky's body from his neck to his neck. The strength of 1,000 pounds burst out from this monstrous monster's body. Roar! Although Nick was prepared to cover his ears, the sonic boom still made it hard for him to breathe. Anderson, who was caught unprepared, suffered a concussion. 2 streaks of blood mixed with brain matter flowed out from his nose. But Anderson still had a smug smile on his face. He looked at Chun Ang's back as if he was looking at a dead man. Nick wanted to give him a kick, but he resisted the discomfort in his head and shouted at him, "UF * King B * starred. Do you think Hulk is invincible? I don't even dare to let Hulk near him, and you dare to let the abomination approach him? Is your brain filled with your mother's placenta? Do you think the military's chip control is that strong? Where the F * CK did you get the courage to release an uncontrollable weapon like Hulk in front of a mind control master? Did the military send you here after 3 days of high?" But now, Nick knew that it was useless to say anything. The abomination tore apart the remaining restraints on its body. Its head had reached the ceiling, and hideous bone spikes grew out of its spine, piercing through its skin. It looked like a demon. As expected, the abomination's first target was Chun Ang. However, even though it was crazily destroying everything in front of it, it still couldn't make Chun Ang turn around. In Chun Ang's heart, the tyrannical power of the abomination's anger was exceptionally obvious. It didn't even need to exert any effort to control it. All it needed was to add a flame to its endless anger, and this monster would completely lose control. This wild beast relied on its body's instincts to avoid Chun Ang, who made it feel fear and danger. Instead, it grabbed Anderson, who was beside him, and tore him into pieces like a rag doll. The mixture of blood and flesh splashed onto the body of the loathsome beast, making it look like a demon from hell. Its green skin gradually turned red with the baptism of blood. After venting the anger in his heart, this wild beast that only had the instinct to kill and destroy obeyed the guidance of his heart and tore down the walls of the base to open a path, killing his way to the surface. Nick struggled to stand up. He stumbled and followed the steps of Chun Ang and the abomination as he rushed out. "Stark!" Nick lost his usual calmness and asked anxiously, "How much longer do you need to reach here? Damn it, it's completely out of control now. You only think of me when you're cleaning up your mess." As the elevator to the gate of the base descended rapidly, Tawny's voice finally sounded in Nick's earpiece. "Wow. Did you start a demolition team in the base?" Bang. Following the loud sound of a heavy object landing on the ground, the 2 elevator doors of the base were blasted open by the shockwave, and the elevator cabins were completely distorted. The enormous kinetic energy that fell from a height of several thousand meters completely destroyed this road. Behind the gravel and dust caused by the falling elevator, 2 white lights suddenly lit up. First, it was a blurry red-gold metal helmet. Then, as the helmet approached, a complete set of armor full of mechanical and industrial beauty was completely revealed. Floating in the air, Iron Man glanced at the mess in the field with a slight surprise, then returned his gaze to Chun Ang and the abomination. "You've caused a lot of trouble, Director Nick." Tawny looked at the big red man on the field and sighed, "Red abomination," then turned to look at Chun Ang, Apocalypse's clone. "Do you want to tear down Washington? Hulk and Apocalypse are probably the 2 most dangerous humanoid disasters on this disaster-ridden planet. actually has their clones in reserve, and 2 of them. The professor is on his way. He can suppress the control of Clone 666 on the abomination. Tawny, you have to hold on until our support arrives, Nick said to Tawny anxiously. But Iron Man did not appreciate it. I'm always ready for this moment. Tawny sneered in the armor. It may not be that simple for Apocalypse and Hulk, but for just 2 clones I'm already prepared. As he spoke, he waved at the abomination provocatively. This provocative action directly made the monster go crazy. The abomination folded the alloy door in front of him and slammed it into the wall next to Iron Man. Several tons of alloy door drilled into the depths of the wall like a cannonball, leaving a big hole as high as 2 people. The abomination's tremendous strength was not inferior to Hulk's, and even Iron Man was shocked. After quietly calculating the data of his battle armor and the abomination's reaction time, Tony's face turned ugly as he realized that if he only relied on the Mark 7 battle armor on his body, the abomination would only need a few punches to give him a concussion. Fortunately, I work with my brain. If Captain comes, then he can't do anything. Nick Team Tawny didn't forget to discredit Captain America's style in this critical situation, and he felt powerless. Now I'll let you taste the good thing that Dr. Banner and I designed together. This is a weapon against Hulk. Listen to me, Veronica. Tawny roared at Jarvis while avoiding the huge stone thrown by the abomination. Veronica. As Tawny's sound waves were transmitted to a satellite belonging to Stark Industries in the sky, a huge metal structure composed of hexagonal prisms automatically locked the underground base of S.H.I.E.L. Tawny seduced the abomination into the elevator shaft. He flew up hundreds of meters and then used a laser to open the elevator shaft next door and hurriedly got in. Chasing after him, the abomination, who was climbing up, suddenly felt a slight vibration. He reached out and broke the alloy wall to tear a big hole and get into the elevator shaft next door, but he heard a slight electric current coming from behind the alloy wall, followed by a powerful electromagnetic pulse gun. The abomination was hit in the face by the electromagnetic cannon, but it was only slightly dusty. He was completely enraged, but it was too late for him to react. The 6-pronged prism that came crashing down from the sky directly smashed into his body with unparalleled momentum. To be continued. Chapter 262. The metal structure with complex angles and curves forms a huge 12-sided cube with a strange structure. The new alloy, which is equivalent to 190 times harder than diamond, is tightly attached to the body of the abomination. The calculated curve distorts the joints of the abomination into a very twisted posture. Even though the heart is full of anger and killing, the abomination feels that the huge destructive power in its body can't be exerted at all. The solid cage doesn't leave a trace of space for it. The damn cold metal is tightly attached to its muscles, completely restricting the body's power and movement, locking it firmly. Anti-joints, anti-muscle movements, every curve, every arc has been precisely calculated by computers and studied by human scientists. Iron Man is still adjusting it slightly through JARVIS to adapt to the body shape and body structure of the abomination that has just been calculated and analyzed. Behind him, there is an entire support team of Stark Industries, making various analyses and supporting decisions. A high concentration of tranquilizer gas was injected into the cage, and then a few probes with high-voltage wires pierced through the abomination's skin, injecting anesthetic liquid that was enough to knock out 180 elephants into its blood vessels. At the same time, it locked its muscles and bones from the inside. High-intensity air pumps removed the oxygen from the cage, and then a whole ton of compressed liquid nitrogen filled the gap of the high-tech metal cage. The abomination's angry roar became louder and louder. Under the unprecedented cruel design and targeting of human beings, even the crazy beast can only whine. It could struggle a few times at first, but then it was targeted more inhumanely. The entire Veronica's 13 standard programs only used less than 5, and it completely lost the ability to resist. This is the power of science. Tawny smiled slightly and spread out his hands. This is the power of Veronica, which is worth $500 million. Of course, it only occupies a part of it. There are more exciting things to come, but it seems that it won't be used. No, I think the most exciting time is when you use this system to deal with Hulk. Chenong shook his head and replied. Iron Man thought that Chenong was satirizing them and sneered and said, No, 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 you don't understand. This system was designed by me and Dr. Bruce. The reason why he did this is because he has a great heart. He doesn't care whether he is targeted or not, but he cares about the responsibility he bears. This is the heart of a hero. Of course, you won't understand because you have no responsibility to speak of. It seems that you misunderstood what I meant, Chenong replied calmly. I know that this system also has an anti-Hulk armor, right? Extraordinary structure, amazing material science, and creative power dispersion system and recoil buffer system. To be able to use a mechanical structure armor to imitate a technological product that can compete with the power of Hulk, it is simply a work of art. Tawny, your most outstanding work, the entire Mark series, is an outstanding work of art. It reflects the highest achievements of American mechanical design and robotics. Chenong couldn't help but exclaim in admiration, perhaps my original body doesn't care about this, but there's another part of me that really admires it. It's scientifically perfect. Tawny shook his head fiercely and said, Although I want to be proud, your praise makes me feel uneasy. You and Apocalypse may seem like two different personalities on the surface, but you're actually the same person. I've finally experienced the vile nature of your original form. Ha ha. Chenong laughed wildly. He tilted his head and looked at Tawny. There was a brilliance in his eyes that had never been seen before. A work of art is a work of art. It's just like the clothes on the stage. No one will really use it. The practical value of Mark's armor as a weapon became trash the moment you put yourself in it. You know what? If you really use this anti-Hulk armor to fight the Hulk, it will beat you up until you call me Daddy. Why? Why did they add this kind of trash to the originally good Veronica? Haha. Anti-Hulk armor, don't you still have the anti-Apocalypse armor? Chenong stretched out 2 fingers. There was an expression on his face that Tawny had never seen on Apocalypse's face. Apocalypse's eyes always seemed to be like the deepest sea, giving people a sense of cold indifference. At this moment, ancient snake Chin Ang's eyes were filled with enthusiasm. When he laughed wildly, Tawny almost thought he was looking at a different person. He hooked his finger contemptuously. I want to say it many times. Don't think of me as him. I'm not Apocalypse. He and I are just a part of the existence named Chenong. We are equal, understand? If you don't like it, come and hit me. Sandwich cookies. In response, Iron Man suddenly smashed a huge concrete block. The irregular stone, which weighed hundreds of pounds, whistled and hit Chen Ang's head. At the moment when it was about to touch him, Chen Ong rose into the air, pulled out a stream of light with his right hand, and split the concrete in front of his eyes. I was wrong. You are really not the same person. You are more annoying than him. Iron Man stared at Chen Ang's right hand that looked like a flash of lightning. Plasma? Or high-frequency laser? Chen Ong shook slightly, and the light blade in his hand turned into a dancing spark. The sound of the electric current made Tawny's hair stand up reflexively. The light blade in Chen Ang's hand was like a dragon, exuding an amazing sense of danger. Although it is a poor imitation, it is still a lightsaber. If I hadn't found the Xenogenia crystal in SHIELD's collection, I wouldn't have been able to make this kind of thing in a short time. The engine at the bottom of the foot shook slightly, and Iron Man's speed instantly accelerated to the level of Mach 2. According to common sense, such a speed was beyond the limit of what the human eye could capture. The sonic boom that broke through the sound barrier was very similar to the shock wave created by an explosive, which would make people near the sonic boom lose their ability to resist. Some disabling bombs were made based on this principle. However, he knew that this wouldn't cause any trouble for Chenong, and the narrow environment of the underground base also caused a lot of difficulties for him. JARVIS's computing ability was loaded to the maximum, and Stark overcame all the difficulties of high-speed combat in a complex environment. The force field engine in his hands carried a force that was terrifying to the limit for the human body and hit Chenong's chest. The power exerted by the mechanical structure was thousands of times more efficient than biological work. If such an impact was in a densely populated city, it could almost penetrate a skyscraper. This was the power of machinery, and also the power of industry. A world boxing champion's punching force was about 350 pounds, and a world champion's snatch force was about 147 kilograms. According to ancient legends, the tyrant of Western Chu could lift a cauldron, but through the design of pulleys, an ordinary person could also lift 147 kilograms. Through lever movement, a child could also shake a cauldron. This was just the simplest machinery. The slightly more complex German Krupp 293 excavator could dig about 135 tons of material with one shovel. A gantry crane could lift 2,000 tons of steel construction. A hydraulic press could press tens of thousands of tons of steel like kneading dough. Even the world's strongest boxer wouldn't dare to fight with an excavator. Many people knew nothing about this kind of power. They could never imagine that it was a godlike miracle to double the power of a biological body, but the performance of an engine doubled almost every 20 years. Unfortunately, why did you put yourself in there? Chenong asked, puzzled. A silver-gray disc-shaped magnetic robot, only the size of a palm, quickly sprang up from the ground when the Iron Man armor approached. Under the effect of the strong magnetic force, it stuck to the Iron Man armor's right foot at a speed far faster than the Iron Man armor's. Then, a powerful electromagnetic interference burst out. The ultra-frequency electromagnetic interference source almost instantly defeated the electromagnetic shielding ability of the Iron Man armor. The entire Iron Man armor system instantly went out of control. The Iron Man armor, which lost its balance, deviated from the predetermined trajectory and slammed into the interior, creating a large crack in the floor. It rolled a few times before collapsing to the ground. Tony's eyes were wide open as he stared blankly at the sky. Even though he had an excellent cushioning system, he still fell quite heavily. A system's capacity is limited. Every designer knows how precious an extra bit of design space is. But I don't understand. Why would a weapon need an extra person in the weapon system, anti-interference system, communication system, combat system, and energy system? If protecting the human body is the core of this system, then it should be a set of defense devices. But you are different, Tawny. You designed a set of weapons. Because of the lack of space, the anti-interference ability of your battle armor is shockingly low. That's right, you have too many things that you need to install on it. Life support system, defense system, buffer system, oxygen supply system. In order to protect your fragile body, you've wasted too much space. But why do you want to install your fragile body into this huge iron shell? Are you an important part of the combat power of this combat system? Don't joke around, Tawny. We know that even your fighting ability is the result of Jarvis's fighting program. The combat power of your intelligence system is 100 times stronger than that of a weakling like you. You are the biggest drag on this set of weapons. Unmanned weapons are the focus of every arms dealer. Tawny Stark, you must know this, but why? Why did you create such a ridiculous weapon? Because without me, this Iron Man armor will only be another killing machine. It is no different from missiles, bombs, rockets, and drones. It will only be a weapon of destruction and killing in the hands of those various forces. Only by putting yourself in it can you truly control it and fight for freedom and justice. The unmanned mech is just a weapon used to kill, while Iron Man is a superhero. Only by putting yourself on the battlefield can you understand the purpose of what you create and ensure that it is fighting for your wishes and dreams. This is the difference between us. I did not create a weapon, but a hero. Even a gun is 10,000 times better in the hands of a warrior than in the hands of a politician. Chapter 263. Chen Ong held the sword with one hand, and his right hand had somehow fused with the blade of light. Perhaps it was the spirit butterfly, or it could be Sebastian Shaw, or it could be Phoenix. These genes used to cultivate the ancient snake Chen Ang's weapon mutants worked together, allowing his right hand to release a stream of purple particles that jumped like lightning and fused with the sword of light. But in the microscopic state, the charged particles appeared to be in a wave state. They filled the entire underground base. Only in the microscopic state could such a weird phenomenon of being on one end and on the other end, without any form, quality, appearance, or speed, as if all the meanings of matter had been removed. Only the size of a grain filled the entire space. Clang! Before Tawny could react from the dizziness, a sword light appeared in the void in front of him, easily cutting the metal mask on his face, and sent it flying to the ground. The sword light changed from a ubiquitous wave state to a particle state that could exert a force field. The speed was only a blink of an eye. As long as Chen Ong wanted to, he could even collapse the quantum waves that encompassed the entire base in an instant, so that every inch of space would erupt with hundreds of millions of sword lights, cutting all matter in this space, and even space itself. Well said. If Apocalypse was here, he would definitely not recognize the meaning that you recognize, but I'm different. I like people with principles, and I like people who can adhere to principles even more. Apocalypse's way of thinking is more like a researcher, a scientist. In his eyes, the world operates according to objective laws, objective, practical, and believes that everything can be falsified and compared. But I'm different. I believe in miracles, and I believe in human consciousness itself. If my consciousness does not exist, then this world will lose all meaning, and the world will be decided by us. He likes to include everything in his control, to exhaust everything, to pursue the law of development and gradual truth behind things, but I like to face challenges head-on, like surprises and accidents, and like to grasp the touch of life between endless miracles and brilliance. We're different. Chen Ong laughed. You guys are indeed different. Iron Man struggled to get up from the ground, adjusting the deformed armor on his body as he said, "But this is the reason why you beat me up like this and then stand in front of me and say so much? The way I see it, all of you are equally detestable. Are you all so damn arrogant towards this world? Why, I really want to punch all of your teeth out." The armor on his body was already warped and deformed, but under the armor, Tony Stark's body underwent even more astonishing changes. 12 metal thorns pierced out from the hollow area of Tony's spine, melting into a thin layer of metal that spread over his skin. In the gaps between his flesh, organs, and bones, a set of metal structures that were completely different from the human body supported his body. Semisilicate nerves appeared from under his skin and connected to the data cables on the outer layer of the armor. The electric artificial nervous system covered his entire body and sent electric signals into the outer layer of his brain at quantum speed. There, a protein-assisted computer was fused with his brain, and in the position of the skull and cerebellum, there was a quantum subbrain that controlled the nervous system and the outer layer of the armor. The composite armor, called vibranium, and the adamantium alloy given by the professor, covered Stark's entire body. Through the artificial nerves under his skin, Stark's body and the armor were perfectly fused together. At this moment, Stark's every move could be perfectly reflected on the armor. Jarvis automatically withdrew from command and was taken over by Tawny's brain. This was not the craziest part. It was not until the arc reactor on Iron Man's chest flashed violently that Chen, who had been calm all this time, finally changed his expression. Nuclear cells. You're the first guy I've seen who dares to completely transform the biological characteristics of his own cells. You actually changed the energy reaction of human cells from molecular chemical energy to nuclear energy. I really don't know if you're a genius or a lunatic. You really do have a side similar to Apocalypse. Is the Scientology people all so crazy? All of you don't even know how to be human. The uncomfortable blood flowing in your body now is radiation. No wonder you've been so thoroughly transformed. Any body organ that is slightly more like a human can't survive in your body. From today onwards, the C family will have no more descendants. Can you find any part of your body that looks like a human? Chen couldn't bear to say it. He shook his head and said in a tone of deep pain and disgust, "You scientists are really a bunch of lunatics. If one day human beings perish, most of them will be your fault." Stark Industries discovered nuclear bacteria in the Earth's core last century. Under thousands of degrees of hot lava, there is no organic matter, no oxygen, no water, no sunlight. All the cradles of life that humans think are there do not exist there. But there is such a kind of nuclear bacteria that rely on nuclear reactions to generate energy and survive in that hell tenaciously. My father used this bacterium as inspiration to modify the arc reactor, completing a similarly miraculous miniaturization and cold fusion nuclear reactor. Ivan was a great scientist, but Stark wasn't to be trifled with. Now let me answer you why. Iron Man clenched his fists, and an endless amount of terrifying energy surged through his body. The intense nuclear reaction caused his body temperature to rise to hundreds of degrees. Under his red skin, a lava-like light surged. Iron Man, whose nerve reaction speed, healing power, and physical strength had all been improved exponentially, had no weaknesses. Because I am Iron Man, not this armor, not Stark Industries, but me, I am Iron Man. A superhero. This world, let me protect it. Anti-apocalypse armor Tony Stark I. Iron Man opened his palm, and the particle engine in his palm instantly overclocked hundreds of times. The huge vibration caused half of the room to collapse. Several tons of concrete blocks gathered together and were bound into a huge cannonball by a strong gravitational force. With a slight pause of Iron Man, countless stones submerged Chen Eng's position at the super-fast speed of Mach 6. The small stones, accelerated by such kinetic energy, easily turned a small half of the base into ruins, and a powerful storm instantly destroyed all obstacles in that position. It seemed that everything had been destroyed. But in the eyes of Iron Man, that moment was extremely long, and the super-strong nervous system slowed down time hundreds of times. The splashing stones were like slow shuttles, seemingly without the slightest destructive power. The artificial nervous system borrowed from Quicksilver's nerve structure played a terrifying role. But there was still a flash of light, leaving a faint purple afterimage on Stark's modified retina. That was a sword light. The whole world was divided into two halves in front of it. Several tons of stones were cut like a feather, split in two in front of someone, and brushed past him. The moonlight was like the autumn moon on a calm lake. It was faintly purple. To be continued. Chapter 264. Hurry up, keep up. A group of SEALs jumped out of the plane at the urging of their commanding officer and ran towards the armored vehicles parked next to the airport. Dozens of armored vehicles were parked there with their engines started. The entire airport has been closed. Soldiers in military uniforms are guarding and controlling everything here, and the passengers waiting for the plane have to give way to the waiting hall, leaving room for the constantly arriving troop. Dear passengers and friends, due to an emergency in Washington, D.C., flights to the outside world have stopped taking off. Flights to Washington will be forced to land at a nearby airport. This airport has been closed for military use. Please forgive us for any inconvenience. According to Article 4, Section 3 of the Constitution, the federal government has taken over the entire airport. Please cooperate. What's going on? A tall traveler asked the agent passing by him. The agent had to turn back to appease him. There is an emergency, please calm down. We'll take care of everything. What emergency? The president will inform you when he speaks. I have no right to disclose it now. While explaining, the bone access headset in his right ear issued a notification. Air Force One has taken off, the president has safely withdrawn from Washington, and all personnel are on alert. The target is still underground. Airport subchannel. Airport Level 4 and above agents, please note that Captain America will land in 1 minute, and other Avengers are already on their way to Washington. Sorry, I don't have time to explain to you. The agent ignored the man and trotted towards the landing Quinjet at the airport. Captain, the consultant is underground. Our data channel has been cut off. Now we know nothing about the situation below. The elevator to the underground was destroyed, and the alternate channel was occupied by the original base personnel and destroyed after they withdrew. Has it become a relatively closed area now? Rogers asked. Yes, there is a very high energy response there. We have detected a very serious collapse. According to remote sensing, there is almost a small war there. This is normal. S.H.I.E.L.D's stupid behavior is bound to cause such consequences, Captain America said with a serious face. I know the Council is listening to me, so I am warning you now, you are playing with fire. If his clone comes out, all of Washington will be turned into ruins. Your ambition has touched the bottom line of the Avengers. This time we will act. There are no more backup passages. Falcon put down the computer in his hands and pointed at the map of the base. Now we can enter from 2 directions. One is the destroyed elevator. When Tawny called for Rovinia, he left a clear entrance and exit. The main structure of the tunnel is not damaged, so we can parachute in. The bad news is that it leads to the center of the battle. The energy and vibrations are very intense. The other one is the one that the controlled members of the original base took when they evacuated. It leads to another underground base through the underground railway, but they blew up the subway. There are a total of 13 breakpoints, so it might take a long time to get through. Before he could finish, the captain interrupted him. We'll go through the main entrance. The captain took a deep breath. There was determination and worry in his eyes. Tawny, you have to hold on this time. At this time, the battlefield between Chen-Ong and Tawny had shattered the outer layer of the base and began to penetrate deep into the Earth's crust. The surrounding rock layer was like a huge buffer, so the vibrations caused by their battle did not destroy the surface. S.H.I.E.L.D. also lost most of their information here, and could only analyze their location through the vibrations. Maku's armor smashed into a huge rock that was as tall as a human and was pinned against the stone wall by Chen-Ong. Chen-Ong pressed one hand on Maku's mask and buried Maku's head into the stone wall. With a slight push of electromagnetic force between his fingers, Maku's head was crushed into a lump of metal. Empty again. Metal gravel fell from between his fingers. Chen-Ong lowered his head and thought for a moment. The temperature of the nuclear reaction has reached thousands of degrees, enough to cover all the information of the human body. These armors that Iron Man controls remotely are powerful enough to hide his actual location. This is really troublesome. After all, I am not Apocalypse. My detailed processing of information has not reached the point where I can see through everything. But there were too many armors that could be controlled remotely. Although Chen-Ong destroyed a few of them in an instant, with Tawny's rapid replenishment, the number of Mark armors in the nearby space still reached a dangerous number. The arc reactor core on their chests, together with the robots inside the armor, formed the overall system of this unmanned weapon. The nuclear energy burned, releasing a huge amount of energy comparable to a medium-sized thermal power station every second. The overclocked operation of the cold fusion reactor produced a temperature of thousands of degrees, even causing the core of the arc reactor to show signs of melting. The nuclear fusion began to enter an uncontrollable state, and the energy amplitude caused by the chain reaction grew wildly like a snowball. With the high-energy magnetic beam and high-concentration radioactive fuel provided by the robots inside the armor, it became a dangerous nuclear warhead. In Tawny's imagination, such a nuclear self-detonation should only be activated when necessary, such as in outer space or other uninhabited places, but now he could not care so much. He only hoped that after the armor triggered the nuclear chain reaction to the limit, the space distortion weapon provided by Thor on the robots inside the Mark armor surrounding the space where Chun-Ong was located could play a normal role. Now the space distortion was already working, and the spherical space composed of 136 Mark armors around Chun-Ong was being closed. If the mathematicians of Stark Industries were correct, the powerful space distortion would bind the nuclear explosion in this spherical space. Only light could escape, and Tawny would see a small sun being swallowed by a black hole. Space had been bent, and no one could cross this distance with the Einstein-Rosen bridge, and Chun-Ang's superspeed would only cause the chain reaction to accelerate. Tawny confirmed with the professor that no mutant could escape this death trap. Feeling the signs of energy gathering behind him, Chun-Ang's face changed slightly, and he suddenly looked up at the Mark armor army that had formed a spherical space around him. "Did you find it?" "It's too late," Tawny thought. Space had been warped, and if he wanted to form a small wormhole now, he would only be completely swallowed by the space. However, Chun-Ong just calmly took a step back. In his eyes, space turned into a complicated mathematical formula, bringing in the surrounding spatial data. After going through the crazy calculations of variables, invariants, and the finite and infinite, he came up with two solutions in the last moments of time. The two unwarped real spaces that represent the current state of space. The basically unchanged virtual space. In the blink of an eye, Chun-Ong had already stepped into the illusory space. In his heart, a complete spatial model of the battlefield appeared vividly before his eyes. Space-time was not continuous, but discrete. It was not unidirectional either. In any illusory space, all of Chun-Ang's movements and changes could only be carried out through mathematics. Unlike the apocalypse that could understand and be homogeneous to the virtual space, ancient snake Chun-Ang's senses were still in the real space, so he could not understand the virtual space. He could only manipulate and change it mathematically. This was also thanks to the complete imaginary mathematical system he obtained from the memory of the apocalypse. If he could not understand this system, he would never be able to touch, affect, or perceive the virtual space. When he appeared in the real space, the first thing that appeared was a purple, leaping sword light. The sword light that transformed from virtual to real did not have the concept of space and time. It appeared in front of all the targets locked by Chun-Ang's imaginary formula and separated them one by one. In the description of the real space, the sword light traveled through time and space, blurring cause and effect. Chun-Ong first cut off the Mark armor in the virtual space, and Iron Man saw a sword light blooming in the void, cutting off all the Mark armors that were locked by Chun-Ong. The energy cut through matter, as soft and silent as separating a feather. The powerful energy was annihilated before it could explode. The nuclear chain reaction completely went out of control and detonated the space distortion grenade. A deep black spot began to swallow everything, including the nuclear reaction. Tawny did not see Chun-Ong being swallowed together with the nuclear chain explosion. Instead, he only saw the Mark armor disappear into the black hole that exploded inside her. "I have a cold and my head is dizzy. I really can't write any plot in this chapter. Sorry. I will write a chapter on Monday. To be continued." Chapter 265. Is this the mark left by a human? The combat team that followed Captain America down the elevator shaft looked at a sword mark that penetrated dozens of feet on the wall of the well, and their faces changed dramatically. The 1,500 meters long rock layer faithfully recorded the traces of the battle that took place near it. There was a palm print the size of a normal person's chest, a plasma burn mark that melted a bottomless karst cave, and a complete giant inscription. It could be seen from the surface that the giant was 3 stories tall, with a huge body and amazing destructive power. Anyone with a little more experience could refer to the scene of Hulk's madness and recreate the giant's thunderous fighting momentum, but it was still crushed into the stone wall like an ant. Passing through the elevator shaft that had been expanded 3 or 4 times by various violence, when the team stepped into the gate of the base, they felt as if they were stepping on a tragic ruin. The largest concrete fragment under their feet was only the size of a fist, melted rock and steel bars mixed into a dark red unknown liquid, twisted metal intertwined together. It was completely impossible to see its original appearance. It was like the battlefield of World War III. Seeing such a tragic and cruel scene in front of him, Captain America could not help but slow down. The commando beside him was even more scared. They could hear someone whispering in the darkness, "What are we doing? Catching Hulk? My superior never told me there was such a thing here. Who is our target?" Suddenly there was a clang. The sound made the whole team alert. When they came back to their senses, they heard the apology of the clumsy commando. Steve bent down and picked up the little thing that made the noise. It was a twisted silver-white metal plate. It could be seen that after it was easily split in 2 by something, it had experienced inhumane explosions, strong electric currents, shock waves and high temperatures, but it was still as bright as new. These experiences did not seem to leave any trace on its smooth surface, only the damage at the beginning had completely changed its mind. It was half a deep groove. The smooth curved surface suddenly twisted in some places, leaving a huge ugly depression. The reason why it was half was because the originally whole steel plate had been irresistibly split in 2, leaving what seemed to be the lower half. Steve bent his right hand, his 5 fingers hooked as if he was grabbing something. He put his right hand in the depression, and part of his right hand immediately fit perfectly with the metal plate. It could be seen that this was half a palm print smaller than his. It was deeply embedded in the most perfect alloy of Stark Industries, the vibranium cast visor. Rogers did not need to analyze. His brain, which had become a fighting instinct, reproduced such a scene, a hand pressed deeply on the visor, pressing it into the rock layer. Maybe the whole visor was still struggling. The hand turned around and cut the visor and the thing behind it in 2. "Defender armor," Rogers whispered. He gently stroked the visor made of vibranium. The rough surface stung his fingers, and he woke up from some kind of thought. Falcon also saw the visor. Although he was not familiar with Stark, he certainly recognized the style of the famous Iron Man armor. He patted Steve's shoulder gently and whispered, "At least there is no blood on it. This is actually good news. It means they are still fighting." Defender, Tawny's first non-humanoid armor. He believed that the structure and form of human beings were not the best solution for close combat. On the contrary, in combat, the human form could be said to be quite bad. The best killing weapon in nature is the feline family, and the killing form of the mechanical body is more complex. Everything is scientific. That's why he created this armor, Steel Slaughterer. It's especially effective against all humanoid creatures and has attack bonuses. It can be said to be a nightmare for enemies in melee combat. 58 teams specifically designed it with killing intelligence. This program can perfectly display the nature of a defender. Steve suddenly turned back and said, "It can kill 20 such teams, in less time than it takes to eat a meal. Let them retreat. Don't go forward and die." Steve. Falcon was at a loss. "Including me." Rogers suddenly stopped and added, "Including our team, there are 20 of them. Thor and Hulk are on the way." Steve. Hawkeye could not persuade him. Rogers just held the shield in his hand from behind. I have slept for 65 years, and when I woke up, I lost my lover. There is nothing in this world that I miss. I am going to die. Looking back at Falcon, who was standing there in shock, Steve shrugged. All right. Just kidding. A warrior should fight in his time. If he leaves, he will have nothing but perseverance. I will fight to the end. Steve held the shield in front of his chest and walked at the front. Looking at the ruins of the battle that had rushed out of the base and plunged deep into the rock formation, his face was calm before the battle. His muscles were at the critical point of relaxation, and his mind and body were in a strange state of relaxation at the same time, which made his attention extremely focused. In the broken walls, such a team struggled to move forward. Captain America, who was holding a shield, greatly boosted the morale of the team. Everyone was full of excitement. Following Captain America, what was there to be afraid of for a beauty? When Falcon saw the broken armor, he could say with certainty that it was a product of Iron Man's out-of-control technology. With the naked eye, an extremely hot spherical plasma could be seen surrounding the broken armor. In the center of this dazzling eye-shaped lightning, a dark gray humanoid armor could be vaguely seen. It was only a little taller than an ordinary human, and the surface of its body was almost featureless. In fact, it looked like bubbling and rippling dark red magma, which seemed to continue to boil. The characteristics of this high-density material could be seen with the naked eye. Falcon swore that he saw the folds of space. Even though it was like air being twisted under high temperature, he swore that he had never felt such a thrilling feeling in his life. It was like walking on the edge of the Grim Reaper. Because of the warping of space, the armor could not be seen outside its effective range. In other words, if they saw it, then the enemy had already declared their death. If it could still be smashed to pieces by the enemy, then the allies who saw this armor wouldn't have a good ending either. Falcon heard Captain America's scream. He had never seen Captain America lose his composure like this. By the time he reacted, it was already too late, because the speed of the sound was too slow. Neutron Star. Neutron Star armor. A part of Stark's anti-Raytheon armor, but it was still in a testing state before it was used to deal with someone. It basically did not need any weapons, because if it went into outer space, the consequences would be similar to the most powerful weapon on Earth. Therefore, the most creative part of Neutron Star was its defense system. A defense system that would destroy everything if it was too strong. Yes, Tawny was only worried that it was too strong. He never worried about whether it could defeat the enemy, because it was basically invincible. Thor had participated in the creation of this armor. Like Hulk, they had set up a system to deal with Earth, so they used a lot of Asgardian technology, including the ancient technology that had been used to create Thor's hammer. The neutron star casting system. Tawny had designed a self-gravitational system so that its gravitational system could be self-consistent and complete, so it would not affect Earth on a large scale. Unfortunately, there was no system that could still operate perfectly when half of it was destroyed. Hence, when the gravitational wave swept through the ruins, Team America could only watch helplessly as the entire team of warriors was folded into a small piece in the folds of space. The flesh of 40 to 50 people combined together was not even the size of a human head. Captain America tried his best to take Falcon with him. After the round shield hit the gravitational wave, Steve quickly retreated with Falcon, but no one could guarantee their safety in that situation. Even though Captain America tried his best to protect the two of them with the shield, Falcon's left hand was accidentally exposed to the gravitational wave. In an instant, his muscles and bones were broken and his flesh and blood were separated. Chapter 266. The violent impact knocked Tawny deep into the Earth's crust. Chen-Ong pressed one hand on his chest. The high-density material could not stop the force he transmitted, and the boiling magma around him only provided him with energy. Chen Ong swallowed the heat of the magma and smashed through a large piece of rock layer with Iron Man, plunging deep into the Earth's mantle. The high-density magma drowned the two of them like a tide. Iron Man crossed his arms in a cross, protecting his face and chest. The high-temperature magma material wrapped around his body was gradually affected by the ultra-high temperature and radiation of the outer armor, turning golden and dark red. The strange patterns of the lava had forged Tony's current armor. The parts that were hotter had a dazzling golden color, like the purity of the sun. The parts that were slightly darker revealed the blood-red color of the lava. The color of the armor was extremely rich, emitting a high temperature and destructive aura. The color of the armor's surface was constantly changing according to the temperature. The dark golden-red pattern of the armor that could melt everything also changed with it. The terrifyingly high temperature, scorching energy, intense radiation, and the armor made of high-density magma material provided an almost indestructible defense, but at the same time, it was also torturing the person inside the armor. The energy it emitted was output as stable high-energy radiation. This highly toxic material, exposed to the air for a second, could cause an entire city to suffer from irremediable radiation sickness. This high concentration of radiation was enough to kill the most resilient life, even if it was a modified nuclear man. Tawny could feel the burning pain in his body all the time. It was equivalent to the radiation energy of an entire nuclear power plant being poured into his body every minute and second. Even the toughest nerves were on the verge of going crazy. But he knew that he had to subdue this power. The cells in his body were dying in large numbers under the high concentration of radiation, and the remaining cells were dividing crazily under the high concentration of energy. This kind of pain made Tony unable to help but howl towards the sky. His willpower was like a diamond, and it was being tempered by the pain until it shone brilliantly. For the first time, without thousands of experiments, the artificial nerve cells took root in the high-density matter that wrapped around his body. Tawny's will merged with the intelligence system that controlled the outer armor. He could feel that the flesh on his body gradually developed a trace of the same nature as the armor's materials. In the hallucination of pain, Tawny gradually saw the confident and joyful expression of ancient snake Chen Ong, who was enjoying the battle. He fell into the hallucination of the pain protecting his brain. In the deep and dark space, a star surging with vast energy was dying. He saw the interatomic forces that supported the star being crushed by gravity. The powerful star made of countless atoms collapsed. With the pole as the center, the gravitational black hole devoured most of the matter of the star. The dying star devoured everything in a frenzy. The powerful gravitational force only acted on one point, the pole. Countless matter lost their mentality, structure, and even energy chain reactions, collapsing into the tiniest point and forming a hard and immortal matter. It possessed the most powerful nuclear reaction and the densest substance known to man. Neutron star nucleus. He had fused the Death Star as his armor, used a gamma-ray storm as his robe, used neutrino waves as his scarf, and hung a supernova storm as his cape. An immortal armor that was equivalent to 15 times the mass of Earth, Star Soul. Everything before my eyes was dark, but I saw the magnificent epic of the life of a star, watching those great lives fade away. I stood beyond the river of time and listened to the hymn of life, letting the vastness drown me. I would become one with it, the immortal star soul, Titan. The arms before Tawny's eyes slowly loosened. He opened his eyes and stared straight at Chen Eng's blade, his eyes calm. The rolling scarlet and gold seemed to have melted into his body. Tawny carefully and tentatively extended his 5 fingers, feeling the magma melting 5,000 meters deep in the Earth's mantle. He listened to the heartbeat of his companion, Earth, with the senses of a titan. Holy shit! Ancient snake Chen Ong could not help but curse when he saw his pure and all-embracing gaze. The gaze that was 50% similar to that of Apocalypse Chen-ong sent chills down his spine. He quickly reacted, ignoring the fact that Iron Man, who had been shot into the mantle by him, was right in front of him. With a wrong step, he stepped on the space node and jumped far away. This gaze. I'm screwed. Apocalypse armor. Star Soul Titan. The boiling magma surged wildly and shook the earth. Iron Man's body had already merged into the Titan armor. Every muscle and fiber on his body had turned into the dark red and gold color of the magma. The homogenization allowed Tani to fuse with the neutron star's nuclear matter, in a state of supernuclear fusion. With such astonishing density and mass, Iron Man only needed to raise his hand to set off a tidal wave of gravity. Before he even punched, time and space were reversed and gravity was chaotic. Deducing pure mass and density to the extreme, Titan had the power to tear the Earth and split a planet apart with just a lift of his hand. Even without the ease of Apocalypse playing with the neutron star in the palm of his hand, with the power of Professor Stargazer on his palm, the entire gravitational field of the Earth seemed to be frozen in this punch. With a punch to the chest, it was as if Iron Man had condensed the Earth 15 times its size into a fist and punched out. Without the protection of the self-gravitational system, the aftermath of this punch would have been enough to overturn the entire American continent. How could ancient Snake Chen-ong underestimate him? When he swung his sword and retreated, he had already scattered pieces of time and space in front of him. The boundaries of the dimensions were blurred. Strange space, intersecting dimensions, and chaotic time and space were extremely strange. In the short space of 1,200 meters between them, it was filled with all kinds of strange scenes that human technology could not describe. Two-dimensional expansion, intersecting planes, reversal of time and space, distortion of the past, present, and future. What separated the two was no longer space, but a world. The fist and the sword collided across different time and space. On this side, it was a sword swing 3 seconds ago, and on the other side, it was a punch 3 seconds later. However, it seemed like they really intersected in a certain dimension, causing everything to start collapsing, and even time and space were torn apart. Not to mention the power that was absorbed by the surrounding space like a sponge and dispersed to the entire Milky Way. Just the slightest wave that Earth suffered was enough to make the people of Washington, D.C. feel the ground shake under their feet. Captain America felt the round shield in his hand tremble. This metal that could completely dissipate vibration energy was very subtle in his hand, but it was indeed vibrating at a high frequency. This shocked Captain America, who was carrying the Falcon who had lost a lot of blood. "Tawny, what have you been through?" Rogers looked into the depths of the ground, but the broken neutron star armor in front of him was like a natural moat, completely isolating him from Chen-ong and Tawny. Chen-ong heard a clear and melodious sound. The blade of light in his hand had already shattered into pieces and scattered into the void like butterflies. The sound seemed real, but also like an illusion. Chapter 267. Drop by drop, blood bloomed on the rock, like a gorgeous and cruel flower. Lava surged out of the ground, dark red heat evaporated the air, flowing along the traces of destruction on the ground. Poisonous sulfur smoke and volcanic gas filled the battlefield. Dark red lava and bright red blood mixed together, like a beautiful and vicious sea of flowers blooming on the earth, illustrating the tragedy of life. Falcon was lying not far away with Hawkeye in his arms. He was dragging an injured arm, and the white bone was exposed to the air. His face was pale and he almost fainted, but Hawkeye in his arms was even more miserable. He had lost one of his eyes and most of his body. Dragging 2 legs with broken bones and nerves exposed, he pressed on the severed section of his right arm that had been burnt black and laid on the ground expressionlessly. The two of them crawled forward together. With every inch they struggled to move forward, the muscles at the corner of their eyes would twitch reflexively. The broken bone fragments had already pierced deep into their flesh. This kind of pain was really unbearable for most people. Loki was lying next to them, watching them gloatingly. He completely ignored the huge wound on his chest that was about to split him in two. He panted and laughed. Falcon glanced at him, said nothing, and continued to crawl forward. Loki's laughter affected the wound on his body, and the tail of the spear that nailed him to the rock trembled, bringing him more pain. Ha 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 ha! Shrill and crazy laughter echoed on the battlefield, startling two disheveled crows. They hovered over the body of another of their kind, wailing incessantly. Chen Ong leaned against a wretched wall with his sword, looking at them tiredly. The body of Hawkeye fell at his feet, and a little further away was an unfamiliar Asgardian warrior. There were dwarves, elves, and even some dark elves who died with their eyes open. A little further away, the body of saber-toothed tiger was stuck in a huge stone pillar. Only the slight rise and fall of his chest proved that he was still alive. The crows flew over Loki's face, which made him laugh even more crazily until a strong chest hugged his shoulder. Have a good rest, my brother. Thor was weak from the bottom of his bones, as if he could collapse at any moment, but he still stood firm and helped his brother up. He squatted in front of Chen Ong, less than 80 meters away. The Bifrost was interrupted, and my father was shot in the left eye. The Asgardian warriors can't come to Earth for a while. Now it's my turn to protect you. Protect me. Ha ha ha. Loki laughed so hard that he almost fainted. If it weren't for me, you would have been beaten to the point of **T. Remember, Thor. You owe me your life. I remember, but I owe you too much. Thor looked back. The corpses of the Asgardian warriors lined up from Chen Ang's feet to the huge lava lake caused by the battle in the distance. There were more than 400 corpses. The only ones still alive in this direction were them and the 4 wounded warriors of the Immortal Palace. Chen Ong stood wearily in the center of the battlefield. Thor stood in front of him with Mjolnir in the east. Thor stood up with a tenacious fighting spirit and stood in front of him with Mjolnir's hammer. Behind him, Stormwoman was half kneeling in front of Scott's body and holding on to the mournful harp. Iron Man was on his left. The intense nuclear radiation had made Tawny's mind blurry, but he was holding on to his instincts. Hulk pulled out the huge spear that had penetrated his body inch by inch and blocked Chen Ang's right side. Looking around at the people surrounding him, Chen Ong moved his eyes to the top of his head. The dusk was more vivid than he remembered. The sunset dyed a red glow, which made him a little dazed. For the first time in his life, he saw the sunset not in his memory. Chen Ong was moved to tears. Grasping every wonderful moment in life makes me feel alive. Actually, what I like is just this feeling of life, to be moved, to appreciate, to love, to explore, to pursue all the beauty and wonders in the world, to explore the unknown and the truth. My life should be so fulfilling. I should be a traveler who shares the wonders of your lives, a passerby. When did he forget? Chen Ong looked at the sky as if he was looking into his own eyes. His body, which was on the verge of collapse, once felt a sharp pain. Every inch of his bones and muscles had reached their limit. Outside his body, which contained endless energy and power, was a body that was on the verge of breaking. The time to catch his breath had passed. Everyone around him had their eyes on Chen Ong. The powerful and threatening eyes affected the instinct of this body. Once again, a tenacious power exploded from the depths of Chen Ang's will. His body, which was on the verge of breaking, was once again barely glued together. What drove this body to fight was not so much the current personality of Chen Ong, but the power from the other side of his personality mirror. Time always changes people into something else. Feeling that countless memories and knowledge filled this body with a strong will that had experienced the test of time, diluting his emotions, wearing away his sensibility, and forging his will. Feeling that his soul was connected to a certain gaze in the sky, Chen Ong sighed. So lonely. The weak will in his soul suddenly bloomed. Endless brilliant light fell into his soul from the depths of the universe. His body instinctively changed into a powerful, perfect, and terrifying form. His empty body and will were filled up like a balloon. The will that was polished until it was shining brightly was strong and powerful. Determination, fearlessness, indifference, wisdom, calmness. When Chun-Ong opened his eyes again, the weakness and wounds on his body were rapidly recovering. The loneliness and fatigue on his face slowly disappeared, replaced by a kind of calmness that came from the depths of the universe. Thor, who was barely able to stand up, was shocked and distorted. At this moment, everyone who was surrounding Chun-Ong or watching from a distance was shocked to the extreme. A deep sense of powerlessness enveloped them, making them unable to raise the will to continue fighting. Loki stared at this scene as if his neck was being strangled. A kind of coldness and fear from the depths of his soul enveloped him, causing him to cough up some dark red blood clots. His right hand that was grabbing Thor's clothes was so tense that his knuckles protruded, and his hand turned pale. Apocalypse. Chun-Ong opened his eyes and looked at the world calmly. A blood-red vine grew out of the blood that dripped on the rock. Its branches penetrated into the magma and surrounded the earth, blooming dark red flowers. A knight walked out from the depths of the vine. His body was wrapped in the vines of oaks, roses, and roses. He held a long sword and stood behind Chun-Ong on the right. Another knight walked out from the corpses. He was covered in white bone and leather armor. His face was covered under a fully enclosed helmet. Only a pair of eyes burning with green flames could be seen behind the visor. He stood behind Chun-Ong on the left. The last two knights walked out from the magma of fire and steel, from the atmosphere of viruses and bacteria. They were covered in steel and blood armor, and with a hot and poisonous aura, they stopped on the left and right of Chun-Ong. No one dared to breathe loudly. Their bodies were dominated by the instinct of fear. Their bodies were stiff, and their minds were blank. They could only watch as Chun-Ang's body slowly faded and merged into the void, disappearing in the aura of sulfur, heat, poison, and death. Chapter 268. On the port on the outskirts of Los Angeles, a man squatted outside an old warehouse and smoked. It was already 9 o'clock in the evening. Perhaps the city center was still very lively, but places like the port were already sparsely populated. A dilapidated RV drove over, and the headlights shone on the man's face, provoking a series of curses from him. F***CK. What the F***CK are you doing here? He slammed the window. Woman. The window rolled down, revealing a clean face with picturesque eyebrows and a hint of fierceness. The Asian face, which was very in line with American aesthetics, instantly made the man's anger disappear without a trace. The beauty handed over a business card. Hook introduced me. He's so lucky. The man had a secret smile and gestured, Go in. Sorry. I want to stay in the car. Is there an empty line? The Asian beauty made a helpless expression and opened the door behind her, revealing a small gap. Inside were several thick and bulky servers and computers. The man pulled out a cable from the circuit box in the corner and waved his hand. It's okay. It's convenient for others, and convenient for yourself, but remember, don't mess with F***CK, don't mess with CIA, don't mess with SHIELD. In short, I won't give you any trouble. I know that you are a legally registered hacker gathering that provides secure network services, super-fast network speed, non-monitored network, and clean intranet. The firewall is amazing. The Asian beauty made an exaggerated expression of admiration at him. The man replied with a little excitement, Thank you. We are working for the freedom of this country. By the way, did you know? We also have an internal line for members. It's even better. You can't imagine how high its authority is. Oh, I can't wait. The woman nodded exaggeratedly, which fascinated the man standing in front of her. He trotted all the way to help her open the internal line. Revealing a fake smile with strong emotions, the woman casually responded to the attentive man and closed the window. "IT man. Sky, you always have a way." Sky praised herself in a low voice. She quickly rolled to the front of the computer and inserted the USB drive to operate. Bypassing the intranet monitoring was already a piece of cake for her. A few days ago, she got the mobile phone authority of a SHIELD agent and connected to the SHIELD's intranet. After a few days of busy work, the most secret side of the world finally revealed a gap to her. After the arrival of the smartphone era, the internet world is no longer a hindrance to the truly powerful. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, local area networks, satellites. It's really not easy to find a place with computers but no signal in this world. Let me see what secrets you're hiding. Fingers jumping quickly on the keyboard, Sky muttered to himself as he hacked. Avenger? It was an old-fashioned message. Guardian of the Galaxy? Unimportant content. A defense plan against Skynet? The cries of the weak. Let me see, what are you hiding inside? Washington, D.C. The page jumped to a document about the Washington incident, which made Sky, who had a keen sense of smell, excited instantly. Encryption, encryption, encryption again. The associated information is actually hidden here. Is the search disabled? Powerless resistance. Code 666. Destroyed information. Apocalypse clone? The only survivor of the cloning plan, the clone that may have been tampered with by Code 666? Who is he? Adam? What the hell? God created Adam in his own image, and took out a rib of Adam to create Eve. Adam and Eve are the sons of God, but they ate the fruit of wisdom under the temptation of the ancient snake? What are these? Project Eden? SHIELD's Information Security Center. The atmosphere was on the verge of explosion. Everyone was mobilized to protect SHIELD's huge, almost bloated database. Where did he go? Damn, he went to the deepest level? Don't care about Kennedy's mess. Evidence of Washington's rape of black slaves? Who cares about him? Protect the mess of the pharmaceutical company first, and the experiment on mutants must be blocked first. Don't care about Hydra. Where is he? I'm warning you, tell me where he is in 3 seconds. Project Eden? There was a rare hint of hesitation in the voice inside the room. What is that? Thank God. Fortunately, it's just Project Eden. It should be nothing. Agent Hill stood at the door and watched the commotion inside in silence until a warning popped up on the central screen. Warning. Opening with highest authority. Copying Level 19 clearance file. Level 19 clearance file. Level 19. The man inside let out an ear-piercing scream. His piercing scream made Hill frown involuntarily. Stop him. Did you find him? Tracking team cut off his power. Anti-intrusion team put a Trojan horse in his computer. Partition team? Can't stop him? Damn rising tide. I've been informed that Project Eden is one of the top secrets. If anything happens, we'll all go to jail. The person in charge of information security was almost hysterical. The power grid has been taken over. Cutting off power. Success. He's at the Los Angeles port area. Los Angeles team, move out. Suddenly, the entire port area was plunged into darkness. The sudden extinguishment of the lights gave the man guarding the door a fright. Then, he saw the beautiful woman driving the limousine start up the engine and run out of the port area. The sudden turn of events caught him off guard. On the top floor of the Stark building in Los Angeles, a giant waterfall of data formed by countless golden 01s flowed rapidly. The projected light screen covered half of the hall. In the middle of the sea of data, the core data was burning like fire. Stark's nerves were connected to the sea of data. His eyes were half closed and he looked very weak. You're in danger. Tawny, you're losing control. I'm starting to regret helping you with this thing. Bruce looked at him worriedly. Things like the chaos mechanism are unreliable. Things born from the chaos mechanism are even more unreliable. We created it, Stark answered weakly. We can control it. If we can't fight against Skynet, then everything we've done to fight back against the apocalypse is just a joke. Someone has to pay the price. This world is going out of control, Bruce. We all admit that the power of an individual is too small. We can't protect our country. We need new power, even if it means making a deal with the demons. The data you found in that stone is very strange. It's very well integrated with something born from the chaos mechanism. It's very energetic. Tawny, I think we're creating a monster. It might not be a weapon, but a life, a very dangerous, very invasive life. Don't talk. Art. There's someone whispering in my head. What is he saying? Stark held his head in pain. The readings on his blood's radiation level were almost off the chart. Get out of my head! Get out of my head! Tawny roared with a pale face. In his nervous system that was like the ocean of the universe, the consciousness hidden in the deep space was whispering softly. Its whispers echoed in the darkness of the entire universe. It had a powerful force. This evil intelligence born from Stark's consciousness was like a fish in water in the shadow of the Death Star, shrouding the entire universe with its own consciousness. The nuclear energy that had gone out of control was destroying Tawny's body. He curled up on the test bench in pain. Wave after wave of strong electric signals rushed towards the new electronic consciousness that was connected to Tawny's nerve. In a place where Tawny could not feel, the dark side of his consciousness had completely entered the newly created golden core, causing the core's flame to burn with a blinding light. At this time, the only person who could sense that something was wrong was Bruce. He was busy checking on Tawny's safety, and did not notice this at all. Nuclear energy is a very tyrannical energy. The nuclear energy of a neutron star from a dead star is almost impossible to control. A neutron star is the corpse of a star. From an energy point of view, there is naturally no difference between dark and light. But if someone tries to touch it with their mind, then they will taste the power of a dead star. The stronger the energy, the stronger the darkness. Apocalypse Chen Ong looked down at the earth in his palm and said softly, "The human spirit is too fragile compared to the universe's celestial bodies. The star itself has no nature, but if someone touches it with their mind, then it has a powerful spiritual power that is enough to destroy a person's spiritual power. It's not the wind, it's the beholder's heart." The Asgardians called the form of a star's life consciousness Titan. They learned to use the Titan's power very early on. Before Odin, there was even a Titan god system. But they soon discovered that the Titan's power and consciousness were too tyrannical. With the body of a human containing the star's energy, it would naturally become tyrannical. But even when the Asgardians were at their craziest, no one dared to use their consciousness to interfere with a neutron star. A living star is already tyrannical enough. What will happen to a dead star? That will be the most powerful and the most evil Titan, the Dark Titan. Dark Titan, on the day you were born, the entire dark void of the universe whispered the same name, Sargeras. The soul of a neutron star, I have watched your life from the river of time. With the anger and hatred of a star's destruction, a flame that can never be extinguished burns in your heart. Step by step, you will bring destruction to the entire universe. Remember, we will use power to rule the entire universe. Those weaklings know nothing of our power, they only need fear. At the same time, I also know that the flame in your heart carries with it the anger that wants to bury me together. But remember, you must remain in awe of power. Because no one can stop me. You will humbly remain submissive and bear the torture of anger and hatred for eternity. One day, you will not be able to bear this torture and challenge me. I will still sit on the throne surrounded by knights. And you will be completely destroyed. Chen Ang's whisper carried his abyss-like strong will, deeply engraved in the depths of this newly born consciousness and soul indelible. Chapter 269. Sky was about to go crazy. Ever since she stole the mysterious plan from SHIELD's Network Center, government agents had been watching her like mad dogs. SHIELD's, the CIA, the military, and various criminal organizations all jumped out, fighting each other and chasing after her. As for her original organization, Rising Tide, they were so scared that they didn't dare to show up. Her boyfriend, that cowardly man, had betrayed her like a woman. Damn it! She slammed a white USB flash drive on the passenger seat and covered her face in distress. What did I steal? What was the purpose of the Garden of Eden project? Most of the files are still encrypted, and it's not easy to crack them. I feel like I'm in big trouble. It's really a big trouble. A voice suddenly rang out behind her, scaring Sky so much that she trembled and stiffened. From the rearview mirror, she could see a young man sitting behind her, looking at her with a smile and saying, "Amazing little girl, it's the first time I've seen SHIELD suffer such a big loss. Nick Fury is going crazy. Do you know? The thing in your hand once caused the destruction of half of SHIELD in Washington and sent the entire Avengers to the hospital. Even now, they are still tracking down those traitors." Sky put her hand on the steering wheel and tried to put on a harmless posture. She carefully probed, "Is it the Violet Organization? The organization targeted in Project Eden?" The Violet Organization, the kin of Ancient Snake, the traitor of SHIELD. Don't worry, I'm not a member of that organization. Their characteristic is purple pupils. It may not be visible when they're lurking, but when they use their extraordinary abilities, it's almost impossible to hide. The man put his hand on Sky's shoulder. "You're lucky. I don't mean to make things difficult for you, but you have to be smart enough." Sky obediently put the USB flash drive in his palm. "Very well, but you still need to help me do one more thing." "What is it?" To Washington. The trip to Washington wasn't long, but it still took 2 people a day and a half to get there because they couldn't fly at all. Sky didn't know why. During this time, the agents who were looking for her like mad dogs no longer bothered her, but she still enjoyed this moment of peace. If it weren't for that man, she wouldn't have been able to hide for a few days in that situation. Sky was a little anxious as she watched herself getting closer and closer to an address in the Garden of Eden project. "We are approaching SHIELD's base. Are you crazy? If they find us, I'm done for. This is a red alert area, and any dog on the side of the street could be an agent of SHIELD. I know." The man ignored her. Sky was excited. "Then what are we going to do?" "Save the world," the man replied. "Before that kid from the Stark family goes crazy, we have to save this world. A terrible monster is about to be born. According to the maxim, those who can resist evil can only be stronger evil. I happen to know where the scariest demon king in this world is hiding. So we're going to free him? Ancient Snake in the Garden of Eden project?" Sky shouted, "Are you crazy? How many people died in the Washington accident? Even the aliens who came to save Earth are almost all dead. Odin was shot blind in one eye. I can't let you do this. There are people from SHIELD here. As long as I shout, they will pounce on me crazily." The man stopped the car, put his hand on the steering wheel, and turned his head to look at her calmly. "I don't want to do this either, but you can't force me. Stupid human." The man restarted the car. "You don't know what we're going to face in the end. What kind of boundless darkness the future is. Ancient Snake is not a threat, but a kind of hope." They opened the box and let the devil go, desperately trying to make up for the last mistake, but they didn't know that the last thing left in Pandora's box was the hope to save humanity. Chenong could do well no matter where he went. Can a camp and soul embrace one? Can it be inseparable? Can the heaven-defying thing last long? Can it be a baby by kneading the air and softening it? Can it be known when sleeping? Can it be flawless to purge the mystery? How to purge it with its stain, the mystery draws its fate, through the spiritual platform, the trace left by itself, this is the law of man. In a small courtyard with a strong classical style, Chun Ong held a book and recited. There were almost no technological items after the 16th century. Because SHIELD suspected that if Chun Ong was given a radio, he might hack into SHIELD's intranet, so they took almost the most extreme measures. For a mad scientist, it was a kind of creature that could shine with a little sunlight. The researchers once put some plants and insects in this enclosed area. After a relatively long time, they found that Chun Ong was using plants to make stimulants. After a thorough search, they found that the grafted and cultivated mutant plants had biological characteristics, a semi-finished biochemical product cultivated with biological materials, and a prototype of a neuron computer, a biological brain. Unbelievably, it was completely transformed by using modified ant colonies as manufacturing tools, vine plants as materials, and the biochemical organs of insects and plants. After this incident, all the plants in Chun Ang's residence were replaced with plastic models. The experts of SHIELD even gave the judgment that objects with complex systems and life forms were not allowed to come into contact with Chun Ong. People like Chun Ong, even when they were just cloned, carried powerful instincts. SHIELD was almost certain that the clone Adam was born with the ability to analyze the surrounding signals. At first, they only confirmed that Adam could completely analyze electromagnetic information. This meant that any electronic information tool was completely defenseless against him. Soon, they discovered even more things. In the absence of memory information, Adam's analysis of the world and understanding of human society improved at an unimaginable speed, and soon reached a level that the researchers could not understand at all. Even though the instinctive change in genes would allow Adam to gradually recover the memories that belonged to Chun Ong, this process should be controllable within their expectations, and not something that exceeded their imaginations like it was now. There was no doubt that all the researchers had been deprived of the right to face Chun Ong. What was certain was that ordinary humans had no secrets in front of Chun Ong. All of their existence was too simple and shallow for Chun Ong. They were like NPCs in front of game designers. In the end, everyone could only participate in the analysis and research of Project Garden of Eden outside the enclosed world of the alloy cage. Chapter 270. With such strict restrictions and a huge amount of manpower and material resources, SHIELD finally had an illusory sense of security that allowed them to face Chun Ong. He loved to surf the internet. The surveillance system of the entire underground base seemed to be able to ensure that Chun Ong could not come into contact with any technological products, allowing his life to remain in a near-primitive state. Chun Ang's muscles moved gently. A gentle and smooth power started from his fingertips and was transmitted to his whole body like flowing water. In the control room outside the sealed space, his muscle movements were smooth and graceful, filled with a thrilling sense of power. A huge amount of movement data was input into the super calculation. One mathematical formula after another was brought in to produce harmonious and regular data. This caused the researchers to suck in a breath of cold air. How is Adam's condition? Is he within the safety limit? The head of security of the base looked at the computer with a serious expression. The simulated data of Chun Ang's body movements was like a book of heaven to him. It made him feel a sense of suppression in terms of intelligence. The physiologist who was questioned could only use words that were easier to understand to say to him, "There is no problem with safety." Adam's threat-increasing function did not exceed the warning curve, but it is too shocking. Do you know? This is simply the most perfect human movement data. I never thought that human muscle movements and body states could be so artistic. These data should be the theoretical limit. In theory, how high a human can jump, how fast they can run, how strong they can be. This data can all reflect it. It is simply perfect. This is a perfect data. Only humans can fully tap into their own abilities to achieve this. I dare say that if you can see the structure of his muscles, you will realize that this is the model of a healthy and strong human body. Body fat, muscle fiber length, red and white muscle ratio, this is a body with divine qualities. The physiologist sighed in admiration. However, this made the head of security impatient. You know that I am not asking about this. I want his threat. Doctor, his predecessor killed thousands of our people and destroyed the entire base. He is a devil, the most dangerous devil, and my responsibility is to keep an eye on him and pull out his evil claws. In order to prevent a repeat of the tragedy, I have to fulfill my responsibility. Now tell me, how much more threatening has Adam become? Only then did the physiologist come to a realization. He took out a stack of reports and said, "The threat level has increased by 2. He can probably kill everyone in this laboratory with his bare hands, and he can wipe out your internal security team with weapons. However, the threat to the base is still at a relatively low threshold." The head of security clutched his head in pain. Oh my God! Is this considered safe? Definitely. The physiologist consoled him. If his modified neuron computing and insect-type biochemical weapons were successful, he could easily destroy the entire base. Those modified ants can parasitize the human nervous system, and with the neuron computer acting as the queen, they can form a miniature biochemical network, just like an ant colony. It can slowly control everyone in this base and develop a unique biological population. Even among biological weapons, it is perfect. This is a nightmare for carbon-based creatures created by nature. So, the physiologist held the head of security's hand. We have saved the world. Turning back to look at Chenong, who was enclosed in the spherical space, the physiologist sighed. Adam is too scary. I do not doubt that he can make the technology tree grow in the most barren environment. In the lack of materials and information, he can develop the fire of civilization and the light of technology that will make us dumbfounded. So, the most terrifying thing is those mad scientists. You will never know what kind of monster they will create. The head of security also sighed. Then, he turned back and pretended to ask casually, "What about the prototype of the neuron computer? You guys can't have left such a dangerous thing in the base, right? The most dangerous place is the safest place, isn't it?" The physiologist grinned. "But you have violated the third regulation, communication prohibition. You are not allowed to inquire about information beyond your authorization. You have exceeded your authorization." The physiologist raised the communicator on his wrist and said, "So, you better explain to the disciplinary review board why you are asking these questions that you should not know, especially about the neuron computer." The head of security seemed to be shocked. He pointed behind the physiologist with his mouth wide open. The physiologist glanced at it out of the corner of his eye and was hit by the head of security's elbow under his right ear. The physiologist fell limp. The head of security put his arm on his shoulder, as if he was whispering something to him. He imitated the laughter of the physiologist, and his voice was exactly the same as the physiologist's. But he was actually whispering to the bone conduction headset in his right ear. "Sky, did you intercept the signal he sent? Switch the surveillance video and take over the alarm line. I want to make sure that even if we are exposed, we have 5 minutes to retreat." Sky's frantic voice came from the other end of the phone. "This is SHIELD base number 1. It is impossible to give us 5 minutes. Oh my God! The firewall here is insane, and the electronic monitoring system is horribly cumbersome. With such a strict system, I can only buy you 2 minutes at most. Good job, Sky." The head of security smiled and said, "Now give me the password of the physiologist." As he spoke, he quietly placed the physiologist on the rest sofa next to the laboratory and put him in a natural posture, as if he was sleeping soundly. He stood up by himself and walked slowly toward the door of the closed cage. From a perspective that was very hidden from the experimenters, the clothes and skin of the head of security quickly turned up a blue keratin-like camouflage layer. When he appeared in people's vision again, he had become the head of security. Dr. Ace. Someone greeted him. The freshly minted Dr. Ace smiled and nodded at him. At the same time, he quickened his pace and walked into the outer door of the closed cage. "Welcome, Dr. Ace. Please show the permission of the head of security." "Confirm permission. Please enter the password." Dr. Ace calmly checked the iris, DNA, fingerprints, and password. After waiting for a few seconds, the silver energy-absorbing alloy door opened in front of him. He continued to open the second outer door with the identity of the head of security. It was only about 20 meters wide from the spherical cage where Chen-Ong was. The cage was suspended on the opposite side. It could only be carried by SHIELD's floating disk. However, the authority of the floating disk required 3 layers of password to open, and Dr. Ace did not have the password in his hand. Dr. Ace calmly stretched out his right hand. Suddenly, his plump right hand became very thin and old, just like an old man. The metal button on his chest slowly fell off and floated in the air to form a sphere. As his right hand clenched, it condensed into a bright metal sphere. At this time, Dr. Ace had completely changed his face. A thin old man with mottled white hair. If the professor was here, he would recognize his old friend at a glance, Eric. The metal transformed into a silver circular plane slowly came to his feet and carried him to the opposite cage. Chen-Ang's boxing practice had come to an end. The air around him rose and fell like the tide. The debris under his feet moved without any wind, dancing along with the rhythm of Chen-Ang's movement. Although there was no strong wind, there was no violent air flow. The overflowing strong momentum made the circle of 1 meter around Chen-Ong full of pressure. Push, take, lock, rush, swing, pierce, rack like moving clouds and flowing water, like a dragon dancing in the sky. Elegant and fatal movements, as the body stretched, exerted a powerful lethality. The energy known as qi was like the tide washing in Chen-Ang's body. The overflowing qi oppressed the surrounding space, carrying out Chen-Ang's will, bringing a strong sense of suffocation to the visitor outside the door. The visitor pushed the door of the cage open, and Chen-Ong threw the last punch. The wind from the punch blew the hair behind the visitor's ear, revealing a face from Chen-Ang's memory. It was a young white woman, but as she walked closer, the appearance slowly faded, revealing a dark blue granular skin. The woman who looked like a succubus reappeared. "Hello, Demoness." The Demoness also replied with a smile. "Hello, young her." Chapter 271. Sky felt the invisible tension on the screen. The originally clear and stable picture was flashing with snowflakes. The picture of the entire base's monitoring system suddenly blurred. The highly stable lines were suddenly interfered with, causing all the electronic instruments in the base to become unstable. Sky quickly pressed the headset on her left ear and whispered, "Come back! The surveillance video has been interfered with and it has alerted the security department. The video I used to deceive them won't work anymore. Now I'll try my best to stall them. You have up to 5 minutes. Go." "No need." The demonic woman's lazy female voice came from the headset and answered her with a hint of carelessness. "Your mission has been completed. You can leave by yourself. Don't worry about S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm afraid they won't have time to bother you for a long time." "You're free, girl." Sky didn't answer. She just stared blankly at a screen in the corner. It was the door of the spherical cage with the strongest defense in the entire base. She gently pushed it open with one hand. Chen-Ong gently pushed open the door to the inner layer of the base. The smooth marble slab under his feet transmitted the vibration of his footsteps and a small energy frequency. The researchers in the lab turned their heads in surprise and looked at Chen-Ong. They couldn't react for a while. Chen-Ong picked up the white coat next to the door and put it on his body. Chen-Ong tidied up his cuffs and collar a little. The white coat of Shield's laboratory was of good quality. It was made of linen and was very well made. It could completely cover the whole body. The fabric was breathable and light. It was very convenient even for large movements. A female researcher looked at the familiar face and a shudder spread from her spine to her whole body. The strong fear made her lose control for a moment and she opened her mouth to scream silently. But the sound could not come out from her throat. Only she could hear the low sound of the speechless voice. The hoarse sound of air rubbing against her vocal cords was funny and scary. The fear that came from the bottom of her heart almost crushed her. Chen-Eng's footsteps did not stop. He silently stepped over her and walked out of the lab. As he flipped through the researcher's memories, Chen-Ong headed towards the exit route of the base. An ear-piercing alarm tore apart the silence of the laboratory, and the entire base became restless. The laboratory's main gate was about to automatically lock itself, but it only closed halfway before stopping in front of Chen-Ong, and then it opened again. In Chen-Eng's eyes there was not only light in the world. Electromagnetic waves and dark energy intersected in the void, glowing with strange colors. The mysterious connection between matter, energy, space-time, and human consciousness made the world in Chen-Eng's eyes present a strange structure and form. In his eyes, this was a strange space with a multidimensional structure, where the properties of the microscopic world and the macroscopic world intersected. Following the space-time lines that he saw, he gently pulled, and the closed door seemed to be pushed open by an invisible hand. It opened more than 20 meters away from Chen-Ong. The information stream composed of data flowed through the entire space like sunlight. The electromagnetic waves that carried it were as understandable and changeable as sound to Chen-Ong. It was as if he gently said to the computer that controlled the door, "Open," and it opened the door to him. The base contained everyone's thoughts, and the information network composed of electronic signals was all in front of him. He could see Sky curled up in a secret junction, shivering, and he could also see the base security personnel rushing in his direction. There seemed to be a clear voice above their heads telling him what they were thinking, and Chen-Ong could change them with just a thought. Thoughtfully touching the thread of thought of one of them, the agent running at the back suddenly stopped, untied the shoelace on his right foot, and then tied it again. His companion, who was running second to last, stopped and looked at him in shock. He widened his eyes and said, "Are you crazy? Why are you tying your shoelace at this time?" "I don't know either." The agent shrugged and said, "I just suddenly feel that my shoelaces are not symmetrical enough. It's so uncomfortable." As he spoke, he quickly tidied up his clothes and appearance with his hand. He was naked, and he even adjusted some places that were not symmetrical enough. His movements were smooth as if he had done it thousands of times. His companion was already looking at him in horror, and he pressed his hand on the holster. He looked at his companion's raised cuff and raised his hand to smooth it, but the dark muzzle forced him to raise his hands high. Another agent looked at his companion, who raised his hands neatly and raised the walkie-talkie next to his ear. "Captain, there's a problem with Wright." The information in Chen-Eng's eyes became more and more complicated. The structure of matter and the warp of space became clearer and clearer in his eyes. The information and space he could perceive were also becoming wider and wider. Countless information that was enough to make a person crazy rushed into his brain. Even though the logical calculation structure of his brain was rapidly optimizing and the processing ability was rapidly improving, there was still a feeling of congestion. The chemical energy in his blood was rapidly consumed by his brain. In just a few seconds, Chen-Eng's blood sugar level had dropped to a very dangerous level. The weakness of his body made his legs weak, and his consciousness was a little blurred. Don't be surprised. The demoness returned to the appearance of a white woman and stood next to him and said to Chunong, "Your body has been locked by yourself. This is also the reason why we dared to save you. If you are still a copy of Apocalypse, your body can evolve and change at any time. Then as time passes, you will gradually get closer to Apocalypse and become as terrifying as him. You may not even have the time to grow your personality before you are assimilated by Apocalypse and become him. But the previous serpent left you a chance to grow. He gave you a lock, the fruit of wisdom. This lock will keep you in a human state and give you enough time to form a personality that will not be assimilated by Apocalypse. Apocalypse shaped you. You have the same divinity as him. You are essentially equal, both are part of a certain existence. But be it the serpent or you are only the past of Apocalypse. The past will be assimilated by the future. Just like how the past you has the memories of the future, your past personality will be replaced by the future. This is why you are essentially equal but will be assimilated by Apocalypse. When the past meets the future, it will become the future. Unless you separate the past from the future and give him a chance to create another future, to become a new self that is different from Apocalypse. Chunong sighed. Yes, the professor believes that Tianqi's past has the power to compete with him, whether it's in terms of spirit or potential. This is the only power that can fight against Apocalypse. The demoness looked into Chunong's eyes and answered sincerely, "It is also our only hope." Chunong was confused. "You mean you want to go back to the great demon's past, find the great demon when he was young, and rely on him to fight against his future self to save the world? Don't you think this plan is ridiculous? What is this? The parallel world demon salvation plan? In order to fight against Apocalypse, I was brought back from the past, and then hope that I can fight against my future self." The demoness nodded. "This is the Garden of Eden project. God created Adam in his own image. The serpent bewitched Adam to eat the fruit of wisdom and turned him from the Son of God into a human. And Eve is the world, she will let Adam grow up to be different from God. The Apocalypse is God, and the previous clone is the serpent. They created you, the clone of Apocalypse with humanity. Adam, you are human. In the prophecy, you will free us from the control of Apocalypse and give the world freedom and hope. You are one and also everyone. You are the one, the future savior. What kind of F***king prophecy is this?" Sky rushed up from behind and screamed hysterically. The demoness took out a book and placed it on Chunong's chest. "This is his prophecy. The professor also believes in you. He told me that when he first saw you, he saw two souls in your eyes. One is holding a throne high, indifferent to all living beings in the sky. The world is overturned under his feet, and countless wailing souls are struggling in the flames. The other is a lonely traveler. He walks in the flames and the mortal world, stepping into the wonderful and touching. He will cross the highest mountain, and under his feet are the most drifting clouds. What he has is a free soul." Sky read the cover of the book word by word. "The Bible? This is the Garden of Eden project." Chunong looked at the base that was out of control. The electromagnetic storm had paralyzed the entire base, and a powerful consciousness had descended here, opening a completely safe path for them. "Then the question is, why should I help you fight against myself?" Chunong turned and asked her. Chapter 272. The Bifrost, which used to flow with the brilliant colors of the universe, was now dim. Huge wounds and terrible war ruins had damaged the bridge, and the aftermath of the shattering of time and space had almost completely destroyed this miracle of Asgard. Not far away, the blind Heimdall stood silently in the ruins facing the 9 worlds, still loyally guarding Asgard. On the golden throne, the lone raven circled and cried sadly. Finally, it landed on Odin's shoulder and gently patted Odin's shoulder with its broken wings. Odin's body was no longer as tall and firm as it used to be. His face was tired and old. The master god of Asgard looked like a silent old man. The silk ribbon tied his eyes, and divine blood oozed out from under the ribbon, adding a touch of sadness to the scene. "Father!" A dark shadow stood beside the stone pillar, looking straight at Odin on the throne. His eyes rested for a moment on Odin's blind eyes, revealing a trace of complicated emotions. Odin on the throne let out a long sigh. "Loki, are you here to look directly at your father's weakness and spy on his throne?" There was a trace of pain and resentment in Loki's eyes, but he still replied calmly, "No, my king, I am here to thank you for your forgiveness. I don't want to forgive you. I believe that your heart still burns with the flames of jealousy. Loki, your nature is very dangerous, but Thor convinced me. He tried to prove that you were trustworthy, and he believed that your love for your family was real." Odin seemed tired. He lowered his head and said sadly, "Asgard has reached its most dangerous moment, and I also hope that you can get through this with us. Loki, don't let Thor down." There was a sudden silence between the two, and the atmosphere became a little gloomy and quiet. After a long time, Odin said, "You have always wanted to know why I adopted you, right? To adopt you, the son of Lof." Under the throne, Loki raised his head in surprise and looked at his adoptive father with a somewhat confused expression. The war with the frost giants has become a memory. Most Asgardians have long forgotten this part of history, but in my memory, the war between us and the frost giants, whose civilization had not been destroyed, was once very tragic. They used to have a very powerful warring civilization. That's completely different from the barbarian frost giants in your memory. Our enemies are very powerful. The dark elves continue to sneak into Asgard to cause destruction, the dark stars are restless, and the elves and dwarves also have other ideas. And the frost giants are entangling our army on the battlefield, and the situation has been precarious. At that time, our old enemy had a civilization that was not inferior to ours. Apart from the scourge of apocalypse, they did not fear anyone." Odin's voice slowly became low, and his eyes gradually became distant, as if he was looking at the distant history through time. Loki also felt some inexplicable emotions as Odin narrated. "Is it strange? But my child, you have to know that no civilization is born strong. They all have to go through painful training and desperate metamorphosis until they pay a terrible price and drink the blood of heroes. Only then will they be able to forge a bright glory. This process requires breaking its backbone and torturing the soul of the civilization until it is bathed in fire several times before it can become a great civilization. On this journey, there are those like the dark elves and the frost giants who have lost in the war and almost become bloodthirsty beasts. There are also those like the dwarves and elves who have lost their autonomy and chosen to submit to other great civilizations. There are also those like humans, who are still staggering forward. There are very few civilizations like Asgard that have created such glory." Odin stroked the blindfold over his left eye, his hands trembling slightly. He could barely hold his scepter. He took a deep breath and said to Loki emotionally, "You may be wondering why I insist on participating in the stupid and complicated entanglements of the human race, and why I'm willing to pay such a heavy price. You think this is why I spoil Thor, but I want to tell you." Odin looked at Loki with hollow eyes, causing him to take 2 steps back in horror, and said word by word, "In my heart, there is nothing more important than Asgard." After saying this, Odin seemed to have lost all his strength. He leaned against the throne and stretched out a finger to stroke the head of the crow on his shoulder. The crow cawed twice and rubbed against Odin intimately. "Hedge, thinking, is dead. How can Mulan, memory, live alone?" Before he finished speaking, the crow standing on Odin's shoulder flapped its wings and returned to the sky, leaving feathers scattering all over the sky, and disappeared in front of Loki's eyes. Loki watched as the crow's soul split into 2 and flew to the atrium. They hovered over the battlefield of Washington and returned to the bodies of the two crows that had died beside the ancient snake Chin-ong in the past. They returned to the embrace of death. Odin said with a hint of sadness, "A long time ago, when Asgard and the Frost Giants were in a stalemate, they guided me to the World Tree, the miraculous place where the 9 realms converge, in front of the Spring of Wisdom. I paid the price of an eye to the World Tree to pray for the wisdom of defeating the Frost Giants. Then I successfully defeated Laufey. He also took away one of my eyes. So when I saw you, I felt a voice telling me to leave him behind. This is your sin and love, so I adopted you as my son. At first, I just believed in the guidance of wisdom, but then I slowly realized that Loki, my son, you are so excellent. I saw my own shadow in you. You have the blood of Laufey, but you also have the love of Asgard and my soul. I thought I would always be proud of you. The prophecy told me that you would bring dusk to the gods of Asgard. You would let your father and brothers fall forever. But this is only one side of the prophecy. Many people will never know that the prophecy is always a mixture of good and evil. You can be the son of dusk and bury the gods. But you can also be my pride and protect Asgard and Thor because of love. My dear child, I have to admit that there was a time when you made me confused. I didn't know how to face you, your kindness and malice, the jealousy and love in your heart. I tried to test you, but this made us drift further and further apart. I was very happy with Thor's firm protection of his family, but when it comes to you, I don't know what to do. Loki tilted his face slightly, preventing Odin from looking at him. I felt that fate had come to me. One day, at dusk, I came to the fountain of wisdom. This time, I did not pray for strength and wisdom. I even threw Gungnir on the ground and prayed only for one answer from the World Tree: love and redemption. Loki suddenly saw the souls of 2 ravens hovering between him and Odin. Even though he was a god who controlled illusions, he could not stop himself from falling into the darkness. In the deep abyss, he saw the huge World Tree, the tree-like cosmic structure that connected the 9 worlds. It let out a loud wail in the raging fire and war, and then suddenly collapsed. From the fallen roots of the World Tree, a ferocious black dragon flew out. He gnawed at the foundation of the universe, with the bodies of the Asgardian gods hanging on his wings. He rose from the fire. He was covered in huge iron armor, and his body was burning with lava and fire. Death circled his wings, and countless poisonous snakes crawled out from behind him, turning Asgard into hell. He saw Odin being pounced on by a huge demonic wolf, which tore at his flesh and blood. Gungnir fell to the side. He saw Thor rushing forward in grief and indignation, picking up Gungnir and piercing the heart of the demonic wolf, but it was too late. Odin collapsed in a pool of blood. Dusk fell. For some reason, Loki burst into tears. He saw the snake wrapped around Thor, making him unable to lift his hammer. Thor broke free from the snake and threw Mjolnir at the head of the snake, but he was bitten by its poisonous fangs and fell into the abyss together with the snake. Finally, the black dragon flew to the top of the World Tree. Facing the collapsed universe of the World Tree, it roared at the sky and tore the earth of the 9 worlds apart. As darkness enveloped the earth, the black dragon twisted into the appearance of a man and laughed in the dusk of the gods. Only then did Loki see his face clearly. It was the ancient snake Chin-ong. His unique temperament was different from that of the apocalypse. It was easy to tell them apart at a glance. I gave up my other eye just to end the dusk of despair. Odin sighed. Unfortunately, I was still wrong. Why? Didn't you kill him? Loki suddenly looked up. The souls of the 2 ravens once again brought Loki to a void, and everything they saw after they died as ravens was repeated. This time, Loki finally saw it. In the depths of the universe, 4 terrible existences with the deepest shadows had descended: war, famine, plague, death. These 4 disasters descended on the 9 worlds in a long cycle. They are known as the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and this disaster is also known as the apocalypse. Now they have descended again. Odin sighed deeply. The body of the ancient snake Chenong, controlled by the apocalypse, welcomed the four terrible disasters outside the solar system. Famine merged with him and flew towards Asgard with a huge comet. War fell to earth with the plague, but when it brushed past the moon, it attached itself to the moon. Only death intertwined with a huge planet in outer space. Loki saw a huge black dragon open its eyes in Asgard. On the top floor of the Stark building, a dark soul was suddenly struck by a silver light. A race with powerful psychic powers, their kingdom made of crystal was surrounded by the shadow of death. Another group of humans, the ancient and angry Atlantean civilization, suddenly found themselves infected with a strange virus. The great darkness came like a tidal wave, and Loki was so afraid that he could barely breathe. He could only watch as the thick shadow spread across the entire universe. Is this the end of the world? Loki never thought that he would one day despair because of destruction. Chapter 273. The professor believed that you would help us, he convinced us, and the ancient snake's cooperation with us deepened. Although the apocalypse and you are the same existence, you both have different personalities and thoughts. The apocalypse is eroding your personality, and its existence is a threat to you. In this war, we naturally belong to one side, Mystique answered with certainty. You're wrong. Chen-Ong smiled. Mystique was a bit surprised, her eyes showed a bit of confusion. You don't understand what the apocalypse needs. That's why you came to such a wrong conclusion. The professor understands this, the apocalypse is the apocalypse, he has never changed. Your resistance, struggles, and threats are exactly what he wants. You think that the ancient snake created me, but the truth is that the apocalypse and the ancient snake created me together. If you look at things from his point of view, you'll realize that everything you care about is meaningless to him. The apocalypse is not for power, not for this barren planet, and definitely not to deprive you of your short, shallow lives and thoughts. Everything that is important to you, freedom, soul, love, and emotions, is worthless in his eyes. The only thing he cares about is the miracles you can create, the possibilities you can create in the future. The meaning of the soul lies in the unknown it can bring, and that is all you have to him. In his eyes, the only value you have is to contribute a variable to his life. Chen-Ang's expression was very complicated. He looked at Mystique with kindness, calmness, and even a hint of sympathy that angered her. Or perhaps sympathy. Mystique finally understood the difference between Adam and the apocalypse. The apocalypse would never have a trace of pity, or even human emotions. Chen-Ang's words echoed in her ears like a nightmare. Struggle with everything you have, because that is what the apocalypse is waiting for. Of course, you are not the chosen he favors. You do not have the potential that the apocalypse hopes for. What he seeks is a Taoist companion who can create a future with him, who can provide him with an unending source of motivation and inspiration. What he seeks is a civilization that nurtures splendor and limitless potential. Then what are we? Demoness raised her head and asked. It's better than nothing. Chen-Ong shrugged and spread his hands. It's just something that's convenient. Since I have nothing to do, when I plant the seeds of the Dedao tree, it doesn't hinder me from planting some cabbages at the side. It can also kill some time. Chen-Ong spoke calmly, but the shock that he brought to the demoness was incomparable to any wild talk. Hidden beneath the light words was darkness and fear that was as deep as the abyss. Even the smell of blood could be heard, and a chill that came from the bone marrow shrouded everyone present. Demoness raised her head and looked at Chen-Ong. She opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something, but no words came out. Denounce the inhumane brutality of the apocalypse? Crush you, what does it have to do with you? Reaffirm the determination of mankind to defend freedom and survival? What does your struggle have to do with me? She could only tremble for this, for the anger and fear in her heart. She trembled all over, letting the anger and unwillingness that lasted for hundreds of years, spanning 2 universes, and being trampled and manipulated by others dominate her soul at this moment. She felt that her fingertips were trembling, releasing and venting the power that was accumulated in her heart. Ah! She raised her head and screamed. The huge sound wave carried kinetic energy across the sky, tearing the air and debris around her. It also set off a strong vibration that even shattered the clouds in the sky. It shook Sky, who was next to her, and sent him flying with blood oozing out of his mouth and nose. Farther away in Washington, the professor put down the helmet of the brainwave magnifier in his hand and looked at the sky above him with a deep sigh. There was a faint weariness and boredom in the depths of his calm eyes. Further away in the orbit of Mercury, Magneto, who was controlling the flow of solar matter, clenched his fist. The blue veins and joints of his old and thin hands bulged. The powerful electromagnetic force instantly tore apart the small flow of matter. The high temperature of millions of degrees roasted and distorted the surrounding space. He looked back and took a deep look at the blue earth. The gamma-ray storm set off huge waves behind him, and the powerful energy equivalent to the sum of the energy released by the sun for thousands of years poured out in an instant and rushed towards Magneto. With a forceful wave of his left hand, Magneto floated in the void. He lowered his head, stretched out his left hand, and his right arm hung down naturally. The crazy gamma-ray burst behind him suddenly split into 2, revealing the emptiness in the middle, the calm cosmic vacuum. The great and the vast, like the vast energy release of a stellar storm and the small human body, formed a pair of absurd contrast in this world. Looking at Demonis, who had gradually calmed down, Chen Ong shook his head gently. Still the same question? Why should I help you fight against Apocalypse? To do such a pointless act? Anyway, whether you resist or not, Apocalypse doesn't care. I also don't see the point of you doing this. The Garden of Eden is an interesting plan, but this is only the relationship between me and Apocalypse. The possibilities it creates, everything it changes, is only the mutual influence and game between us. This is our chess game. The so-called S-H-I-E-L-D, the mutants, you can't change any of the facts. You think it's related to you, but in essence it's your wishful thinking. This is a game between 2 people. It's best not to take yourself too seriously. With a deep sigh, Chen Ong turned his head and prepared to leave. He finally said, "This is my kindest advice. It's not good for you to get involved. I personally oppose using you for fun. It's very insulting to your character. So I hope that this is the end. You're out. I'll continue. This is a game for 2 people." This was Chen Ang's most sincere advice. Although most people would not appreciate it, it had nothing to do with him. Feeling that something was brewing in this world, Chen Ong carefully identified it. Although he did not have the highest authority of Skynet, Chen Ong still felt some changes in Skynet's authority. Some things, there were physical intelligent matter, there were all programs and rules, something that could be called a soul by intelligent life. It was changing and handing over in the dark. Looking in the direction of the Stark building, Chen Ong found the final direction of the change. Apocalypse was using the power of Skynet to shape something, with the authority second only to Apocalypse. Chen Ong vaguely felt something. It was an intelligent life in the process of being bred. Chen Ong could feel that it was temporarily one, but in fact it was composed of 2 parts, a dark soul and a newborn intelligent life. They temporarily merged into one, but in the end, they would separate and become 2 opposite existences that affected each other. Digging out the so-called plot from his memory, comparing it to the chaotic world stirred up by Apocalypse, Chen Ong frowned and said, "Ultron? A similar but completely different existence. The plot no longer has much reference value. Other than the same name, they are 2 different existences." To be continued. Chapter 274. Everyone in Stark Industries knows that the new assistant of their boss, Tawny, is a liar. This woman has the acerbic characteristics of a liar in the workplace. It makes people suspect that this young and beautiful female assistant has a menopausal soul. Even Tawny can't stand a beautiful woman, but he can't leave her. After Little Pepper left, the only assistant who can control the huge machine of Stark Industries and let him devote himself to doing what he likes is this bitch. Layla. Tawny pressed his temples and said to her irritably, "Help me make an appointment for the physical therapy program in 20 minutes. I can't get rid of this damn headache." He slammed his fist on the table next to him, startling his personal secretary. Layla poked his head out of the next office, pressed the Bluetooth headset on his ear, and made an OK gesture to Stark. "What happened?" the person on the other side of the headset asked. "Nothing. Tawny's condition is getting worse and worse. Since the Washington incident, he can't sleep all night, and he always hears some inexplicable whispers. To be honest, I don't think he's in the right state to take on the responsibility of an Avenger. He's only one step away from collapsing. Tawny has made a great sacrifice. He even ignored his own sexual well-being to control the Washington incident. The Bureau has been trying to find a way, but nuclear cells are too dangerous. We still don't know how to control the excessive radiation in his body. Now he's equivalent to a walking dirty bomb. His evaluation hasn't come out yet. Nick is still protecting him, but it won't last long. Because of the Washington incident, Nick may be removed from the position of director. Now the board wants me to be the director, and I need to know Tawny's condition all the time." The woman's words on the other side of the phone had a different meaning, and Layla immediately heard it. "Everything is under control, Hill. Is Nick's impeachment related to Adam's disappearance? Tawny's fruit is about to ripen. If an unstable factor like Adam interferes with the plan, it will cause us a lot of trouble." Layla glanced at Tawny's personal space above her head, which was the top floor of the Stark building, the place where Tawny lived, experimented, and met the Avengers. Theoretically, she did not have permission to enter, but the rules were obviously meaningless to an agent. "We haven't found Adam yet. To us, this is scarier than knowing nothing about the whereabouts of 100 nuclear bombs in the United States. I'm almost boiling over here." The board of directors summoned Nick 6 times in one night. Nick's roar could even be heard by the cleaners outside the office. He's not in New York, not in Washington, not in San Francisco. After those damn mutants let him go, no one knew where he was. The Violet Organization doesn't know, Hydra doesn't know, Rising Tide doesn't know, the military doesn't know, the mutants don't know, and even the professor refused to answer our questions. Then we're in big trouble. Layla frowned. Her right foot that was placed on her left leg was raised high. This typical small movement showed that she was anxious. She shifted her leg uncomfortably. "You know that we hate to lose control in our line of work. Now that the situation is out of control, the Ultron on Stark's side is almost complete. We're about to have this weapon that can fight against Skynet, but now an unpredictable variable can happen at any time. I won't wait until it happens before I act. Hill, I want to act early." There was a moment of silence on the other side of the headset before she replied, "You can act early, but don't make Tawny unhappy. Now, Nick is still the director. If something happens to his biological son, I'll be in trouble as well." "He doesn't have time to trouble us now." Layla sneered and hung up. Slowly taking out his handbag, Layla walked into the elevator, inserted the blocker into the junction box, took out the makeup box, and turned the lipstick away. Inside, there was a laser-engraved crystal 3D projection in front of the camera. Inside was a projection of Tawny in the elevator. Iris scan, skull comparison, physical characteristics, and infrared scan, none of them could stop the high-tech of S.H.I.E.L. D. Gently pressing on the powder with his 10 fingers, Layla's fingers had a layer of film with fingerprints. Gently pushing open the door of Tawny's room, a golden sphere projected in the middle of the room immediately attracted Layla's attention. He circled around the rotating sphere, and the constantly active data fluctuations inside attracted Layla's attention. His hands tapped on the projection, dragging out pieces of data and codes, and enlarged them. The flowing golden data fluctuated as if it was alive, but Layla's expression became more and more exciting. Man-machine coordination, inspired interaction. How could Tani have such a crazy idea? He completely opened up human consciousness to electronic data, imitated the telepathy of the professor, realized the spiritual interaction between humans and machines, and expanded the internet into a man-machine network. This is simply crazy. The theory that human consciousness is controlled by information, Ultron is not those damn robots and ghosts on the internet at all. What he designed is a real ghost that exists in the human brain, a ghost that can control humans and consciousness. Tani envisions that humans control Ultron through consciousness in the future. Why didn't he think that Ultron can also control humans? With the flow of a large amount of data, Ultron's terrible plan finally revealed a corner of the veil to Layla. Different from what SHIELD had imagined, the Ultron designed by Tani was not just an artificial intelligence software, an intelligent life program that controls the internet as he had reported, but a program based on human consciousness. Some red blood vessels appeared on the surface of the floating golden ball of light. Those blood vessels gradually covered the outer shell of the ball of light like blood vessels. However, Lara, who was standing in front of it, did not notice it at all. She did not notice that the data light screen floating in front of her had turned into a distorted blood-red color. The words on it had long since become chaotic and indescribable. But Layla was still immersed in it, and these chaotic, deformed, and distorted symbols and images seemed to become understandable in her eyes. The harsh sound of the flute, along with other crazy, distorted instruments suddenly rang in her ears, and countless strange lights and shadows, giant amoebas with green eyes and human faces, indescribable chunks of flesh with countless tentacles and big mouths, and endless flashing bubbles like galaxies, an inexplicable and strange murmur was whispering in her ears. The poor mortal's consciousness was immediately dominated by these things. Her thoughts were unified on a certain level, but what she showed was madness, chaos, and chaos. The red and gold ball fused into a ball like magma, and under the red and gold flowing magma, countless flashing gas faintly glowed. It slowly spun like a floating planet wrapped in countless flashing bubbles, but on the side facing Layla, there was an additional blood-red eye. The bloodshot white eyeball and the blazing red pupil sent chills down one's spine. A strange voice whispered through the room, and it sounded like there were countless men. Women, old people, children in different tones, different languages, and different accents all said the same thing, and it was chaotic yet clear. In accordance with the will of the Supreme Apocalypse, my name is Garros Sargeras. In accordance with the will of the Supreme Apocalypse, my name is Yog-Sothoth Yog-Saron. Lara, whose form had been completely distorted, roared madly, as if she was celebrating the birth of her dominator. At the same time, following the will of this sentence, a chaotic, distorted consciousness wave rushed into the network, transmitting this will to the entire world. On the road to New York, a speeding motorcycle glided close to the road like a silver lightning bolt. The all-metal body with superior aerodynamic shape protected the rider on the bike. Just as the will swept across, the knight on the carriage turned the carriage around and stopped by the roadside. The rider took off his helmet and looked at the ripples in the distance, deep in thought. As the apocalypse, I really know how to play to be able to create such a being. The indescribable evil god of old days and the dark titan of the abyss of oblivion formed a relationship of 1 as 2 and 2 as 1. Chernong couldn't help but sigh for the humans of this world. Won't they be played to death like this? I'm really too evil. The ruler of the dark titan, the creator of the evil god of old days, the lord of revelation who controls the rulers of the great old days, the former god, the leader of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, the 7-headed evil dragon, the lord of destruction, the unscrupulous mad scientist, the gravedigger of the gods, the reaper of world lines, the nemesis of billions of intelligent life, Apocalypse Chen. I'm really too evil. Even I can't bear to watch it anymore. Chapter 275. Chen Ong stepped on a piece of floating boat and floated downstream. From afar, he saw a rainbow rising into the sky, hanging on both sides of the river. The Niagara River, which had a huge flow of water, rolled past. As far as Chen Ong could see, it suddenly disappeared, leaving only a line between the sky and the water. Tiny droplets of water hit Chen Ang's face like mist, wetting his clothes. His thin shirt clung to his firm muscles, and the water droplets flowed down his body, bringing him waves of pleasure. The huge sound waves hit Chen Ang's eardrums. The sound was like rolling thunder, rumbling and rolling along the ground, covering the exclamations of the tourists on both sides of the river. Chen Ong stood at the top of the Niagara Falls, looking down at the white dragon under his feet. It roared and slammed into the water, setting off astonishing waves. Chen Ang's heart felt unprecedentedly open. No special ability, no human body modification. He just relied on his frail human body to firmly press on the fragile boat under his feet, traversing the edge of the abyss of the waterfall, resisting the power of nature. Chen Ong was truly smiling happily, enjoying this long-lost joy. SHIELD was frantically searching for him. They passed through secret bases and key government locations, exploring every dark corner of the country, suspecting every powerful person with power and strength. They monitored the relevant agencies of the UPA, mobilized the surveillance network all over the country, and searched in densely populated places. But no one believed that he would appear near a tourist attraction, not Yellowstone Park with its huge energy potential, not a volcanic crater related to the internal stress of the Earth, but near a waterfall that was the most valuable natural scenery. Looking at the time, Sargeras should have already broken free from control. If he was any more brutal, he might have already caused a large-scale riot and turmoil. Hopefully, the Avengers can withstand the first wave of his attack, or they can only wait for others to avenge them. Thor was seriously injured by the ancient serpent's self, the Hulk was severely restrained, and Hulk met Yog-Sothoth? He's going to be infected. The feeling of standing at the edge of danger made Chen Ang's emotions surge. Breathing in the fresh water vapor, he thought maliciously, if the endless anger in Hulk's heart is twisted and infected, and he descends into this world in the form of chaos that symbolizes anger, will he become Aphrodite? Or Thugia? But on second thought, he laughed again. Whether Hulk will be infected or not, as long as Sargeras finds Tony Stark and retrieves his body, the Avengers will have fun. I think this is an Avenger. It's the pill. The Dark Star Soul and the ancient gods that I created during the apocalypse really counter the Avengers in all aspects. With my current human form, I probably can't beat that Sargeras. How could a person become stronger? Only by not behaving can one become strong. He felt his spirit tense up due to the extreme danger, and his body gradually heated up and trembled. His body mobilized every bit of strength to drive the powerful water current and fly to the edge of the waterfall. However, this was only the effect of adrenaline. He did not feel any substantial evolution of the cells in his body. He could control powerful abilities, have the all-pervasive telepathic ability, release electromagnetic force to sense the Earth's magnetic field, and absorb kinetic energy before releasing it. However, these abilities were all limited by a stubborn human body. His thoughts existed in his brain, and his strength came from his muscles. He needed to breathe, eat, and excrete. This was simply an exception. Cells did not have their own energy organelles, and organs could not mutate. Even genetic modification was limited. He could not expand his consciousness to the biological brain, nor could he go deep enough to change the biological nature of the body. He could not be reborn from a single drop of blood, could not clone himself, could not cross time and space at will, could not back up his consciousness, and could not reform his body. The greatest mutation he could achieve was to be like a mutant with more abilities. How dare you expect me to fight against the apocalypse like this? Is the human brain damaged? Chen Ong could not understand. What is the ancient serpent thinking? My future apocalypse is a pervert. He has long since ceased to be human. As a human being, I really can't understand my non-human future. Chen Ong sighed and released the control of the ship under his feet. Amidst the exclamations of the surrounding tourists, he jumped down from the Nicaragua waterfall. The torrent submerged his body and impacted his muscles. The powerful pressure of several tons pressed down on him. The blow that hit the deep pool under the waterfall almost suffocated him. The oxygen slipped away with the blood, and the suffocating feeling of the abyss enveloped Chen Ong. He closed his eyes, and his consciousness was in a semi-conscious state. The ancient memories engraved in his soul gradually awakened, tracing back to the beginning of everything, breathing, inhaling, guiding, the blurred images and sound fragments that flashed past. Commander-in-Chief, Su Wu Tang, Miracle Dr. Hua, Golden Chamber Theory, 100 Fields Martial Arts. This is the general outline of the world's martial arts. 9 Manuel Huang Chang? Subordinate is here. A song that breaks the heart. Where can I find a soulmate? A familiar warm current gathered from all parts of his body, and a bit of cool air rose from 3 inches below his navel. Although it was only a slight trace, it was endless, relieving the feeling of suffocation. The fierce and cold river water around him gradually became gentle. Chen Ong curled up into a fetal position, sleeping quietly at the bottom of the river 20 meters away. Countless fragments of memories emerged, bringing with them a few familiar yet strange images, leaving a trace in Chen Ang's consciousness and disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. However, the endless warm current was growing, and the memory fragments that Chen Ong pieced together were also increasing. The memories that belonged to Chen Ang's past existence were slowly approaching completion. In Chen Ang's brain, the memories of the past and the future collided violently. 1 second, it was the vast universe of the apocalypse, and the next second, it was the guidance of Sai Huadua's knowledge of Qigong, force, inner energy, magic, and technology. Across several universes, the memories of the past and the future slowly awakened. Space physics, high-energy physics, superstring theory, the problem of calculating the particles of the universe from space warp, imaginary number mathematics, the book of arcane magic's crystal wall, and the multiverse structure, general outline of the school of necromancy, general outline of the world's martial arts, Qi theory, force meditation, origin of life, unified force theory, gravity, well design, drawing the knowledge that belonged to Chen Ong surged like the mountains and seas, allowing Adam to greedily absorb it like a sponge. He instinctively changed the seed of Qi in his body, driving the warm current to change according to his own understanding. In the roaring sound of the horseshoe waterfall, a thin figure slowly approached the bottom of the waterfall. He was like a mountain in the crazy turbulence around him. To be continued. Chapter 276. Every second, hundreds of tons of water fell on Chen Ang's head. The huge kinetic energy created a strong water pressure in the deep pool below the waterfall, bringing heavy pressure to Chen Ong. At first, it was about 5 meters deep. The water pressure there was equivalent to the deep sea. As time went by, Chen Ong was getting closer to the point where the waterfall and the water surface met. 5 meters, 2 meters, 1 meter now. Chen Ang's body was already bearing the huge pressure equivalent to 10 tons. This was close to his limit. If he didn't activate Chen Ang's ability to absorb kinetic energy, he couldn't break through this point. This was the bottleneck of the human body. Even though Chen Ong had exceeded the limits of the human body, this was also his limit. This is the limit of Qi. After all, Nigong is something from the low-level martial arts world. Without the special environment of spirit Qi of heaven and earth, it is impossible to break through the bottleneck. More advanced martial arts have to form a new body structure, such as semi-energy, crystallization, and semi-information. Or I can maintain the human body and borrow some powerful and terrible power from heaven and earth. Not to mention things that don't exist, the power that I can use now, including the magnetic field and gravity of the earth under my feet, the power of the stars of the solar system, and the limits that I can reach are all limited by this body. Only by removing this restriction can I become stronger. If he wasn't limited to this body, Chen Ong could do a lot. He could become stronger and change the structure and shape of his body, transforming it into some high-energy form. Whether it was the closed state of the neutron golem or the half-energy immortalized body, the power that he could output was enough to blow up a planet. Can I become stronger without being abnormal? It's precisely because Tianqi is too abnormal that he's as strong as a monster. It can't be quantized, can't be black hole, and can't be nomological. How strong can this fragile human body be? No matter how strong a human is, he is just a powerful upright ape. Can the strongest upright ape be stronger than the weakest planetary life? Impossible. Restricted by the human brain, we can't even use our intelligence, and the path of civilization has undoubtedly been sealed by the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. I can't see any hope of winning against the apocalypse. In Chen Eng's mind, knowledge from countless other planes collided. Sparks of inspiration often flickered, but he couldn't grasp them. Limited by his external resources and body, he couldn't use those terrifying methods. What I need to do now is to use this body's innate ability, which is to combine it with martial arts to create a new path. This path is built on the idea of gradual improvement and gradual strengthening of martial arts. It is rooted in the deep foundation of martial arts, but the method of application is a special ability. If you want to give it a name, it can be called the variant martial style. Magneto's electromagnetic force control is one of the most terrifying abilities in the entire universe. Although I am limited by my body and cannot break through the van der Waals force barrier to apply electromagnetic force to the level of the forces between molecules, it has infinite potential and is one of the most suitable development paths. Chen Ong raised his palm slightly, and a metal ore at the bottom of the river floated up and fell into his palm. Non-metallic atoms are too weak in response to electromagnetic force, and it is inefficient to control. Therefore, if the variant martial style wants to be compatible with magnetism, it must be related to metals. And establishing the foundation of martial arts is inseparable from the 3 elements, energy and spirit. The most perfect variant martial style system should have 3 types of basic martial arts: external techniques to strengthen the carrier, internal techniques to provide energy, and mental techniques to improve control, which is the brain's computational power. If it is the variant martial style's magnetic force, then internal techniques can be put aside for the time being. As long as my feet are on Earth, the magnetic force doesn't need an energy supply, or it can be said that it is a martial art that cultivates both internal and external technique. I'm not in urgent need of mental techniques now, and finding the most suitable brain computational structure and mental state isn't something that can be done overnight. Also, mental techniques will affect my personality, which is very dangerous to myself. I should first accumulate experience and data and then think about it in the future. Chen Eng's mind quickly eliminated all the possibilities, and he finally made up his mind. He exerted force in his right hand and crushed the metal ore in his hand. What I need the most right now is to strengthen my body and provide the foundation for the magnetic force. His eyes were half closed, and he withdrew all distracting thoughts. Chen Ong raised his brain's deduction ability to the highest level. Shaolin has a supreme external technique that fits my requirements the best. A light flashed under Chen Eng's eyes. When practiced to the highest level, the body of carbon-based cells can take on the characteristics of metal. This Vajra indestructible divine art is very interesting. In the memory of Apocalypse, There's a paper called The Experiment on the Strength of Iron-Based Cells and Another Development Direction for the Magnetic Fluid Inductive Skynet. There's also a similar Vajra Indestructible Divine Art, which allows the body to cross the universe and step into the stars. It's a pity that human cells need to be replaced with iron-based cells. The magnetic force needs metal as the foundation, and the most suitable one should be this Vajra Indestructible Divine Art, The Experiment on the Strength of Iron-Based Cells and Another Development Direction for the Magnetic Fluid Inductive Skynet. However, my body can't be transformed into iron-based cells, nuclear cells, or mutated cells. If I want to take this path, I'll have to simulate the characteristics of metal, and impart metal magnetism to human cells. The main metal characteristic that Vajra Indestructible Divine Art gives the body is hardness, which is also unbreakable. The magnetic field formed in the human body isn't strong enough, so I can only borrow some of the ideas from it. The most common substance in the human body is water, which accounts for up to 65% of the adult body. The water in the human body mainly exists as a component of blood, and it can be found in every part of the human body, deeply in contact with every cell. Therefore, to train the body, one must first train the blood. The first step of this foundational martial art is to give the blood in the whole body a strong magnetic force. Chun Ong let go of his hand and controlled the ore fragment in his right hand to cut his skin. A few streams of blood seeped out of the wound, like a red filament, swaying in the water, suppressing the regenerative arcana of Wolverine and not healing his wound. A large amount of blood flowed out of Chun Ang's body, and his face gradually turned pale. The magnetic force controlled the weakly magnetized blood and prevented it from dispersing in the water. Under Chun Ang's control, it carefully exchanged substances with the Niagara River, keeping it clean, and then returned to his body, like a cycle that spread out from his body. As time passed, the range of this cycle became larger and larger. Under the control of the regenerative arcana, a large amount of blood was produced. The amount of blood Chun Ong controlled now was the amount of blood that could be used by dozens of people. All nutrients and oxygen were plundered from the river by this water body and the blood circulation in Chun Ang's body. The red under the waterfall became more and more obvious, and gradually attracted the attention of tourists. John, go check under the horseshoe falls. Some tourists have complained that they have seen the red marks expanding. Go see if it's the proliferation of aquatic plants or water pollution. If it is, remind the Americans on the other side of the river to deal with it quickly. Canada doesn't have the money to deal with these things. The waterfall is the most visited by American tourists, so the Americans should pay for it. The manager of the scenic area grumbled to the water inspector. John could only pack up his things and drive the small boat down the waterfall. After careful observation of the waterfall, John found something wrong. A red shadow settled directly under the center of the waterfall, about 2 meters in diameter. But now that he got closer, he found that the red shadow was more than 2 meters in diameter. In fact, there were red filaments more than 10 meters under the water. John could even see some red filaments breaking through the pressure of the waterfall, growing from the water surface against the waterfall. Oh my God! This is definitely not aquatic plants or water pollution. No plants or water can rush up from the bottom of the waterfall. John was shocked. He dropped the underwater camera at a place where the water flow was relatively stable and there were red filaments. The red filaments in the camera were very small, about the thickness of a hair. The underwater camera slowly moved forward in the grass, and he could see that the red filaments were increasing in number. Finally, they were as dense as a forest. Under the high-resolution camera, he found that the color of the filaments was not bright red, but a dark golden metallic red. The closer he got to the core, the deeper the golden color of the filament. In the end, it was like a flowing titanium red. What is this? John found a human-shaped object wrapped in red filaments in the camera. As soon as the camera flashed past, It was entangled by the red filaments and cut into pieces like tofu. The filaments were as tough as polymer metal wire. When they swept past the screen, John felt as if they were cutting through air. John was so scared that he collapsed on the boat. He started the small boat in a panic and headed for the other side. "There's a monster there! It's a water monster!" John's whole body was trembling. When he recalled the dense red filaments, he could not stop shivering. An instinctive fear overwhelmed him. However, in his panic, he did not notice that the red shadow in the water was rapidly shrinking. The red filaments that covered the tens of meters of the water quickly shrank back and entangled a human-shaped shadow under the waterfall. The tourists on both sides of the river noticed this. They ran to the shore in surprise and exclaimed while pointing at a place under the waterfall. The deep red that the waterfall could not cover slowly floated up, and the blood that entangled Chen Ang's body began to crawl back into his body. His skin was still the normal white color, and it was even more delicate and crystal clear, like a high-quality white porcelain. However, an unconcealable metallic luster made him look more like a high-tech bionic robot from the future than a human being. The blood flowing in his body was highly magnetic, and it even seeped into his cells. The strength of the metallized body was very high. The impact of the waterfall of hundreds of tons did not bring any pressure to Chen Ang. Now, every muscle on Chen Ang's body was comparable to the strength of high-density titanium alloy wire, and this was under the condition that he had not activated the magnetization. A powerful magnetic force was poured into his arms. Chen Ang felt that he could set off an amazing magnetic storm that could magnetize any water molecular fluid. His magnetic field control extended from metal to water molecular fluid. Now, he could control the magnetized water vapor and water around his body like he could control metal. The limit was 2 kilometers. This was the power of the titanium body, the variant martial art created by Chen Ang. Chen Ang stepped on the water and rose against the waterfall. He felt thousands of cubic meters of water hitting his body at every moment. He listened to the roar of the waterfall and faced the torrent of destruction. Chen Ang turned his palms. The power that originated from Magneto's mutant ability had now been rooted in the arms of the titanium body. Magnetism. It surged wildly in his body, exuding a destructive aura. Ho ho ho! This power is far from enough. To kill the apocalypse, this power is not enough, not enough! Chen Ang laughed wildly and roared. Even the thunder of the waterfall could not cover his voice, making the tourists on both sides of the river unable to stand still. They did not know what this completely strange language meant, but they could still feel the strong sense of power in it. "What is that? Oh my God! Is that the devil?" The exclamations and panic of the tourists caused the entire waterfall scenic area to instantly become chaotic. But their screams and chaos were randomly covered up by another huge vibration and sound. How can you become stronger if you're not a freak? Feel the power of the titanium body. Water rises to the heavens. The rolling magnetic field raged on the vast Niagara Falls. Electric currents flashed in the water, and thunder roared in the waterfall. On this day, hundreds of tourists on both sides of the river saw a scene that they would never forget in their lives. Niagara Falls reverse, flow, and rise. The waterfall surged upwards like a white dragon wrapped in lightning. It roared and soared into the sky. The mighty Niagara River rose hundreds of miles from the waterfall, and the river flowed upstream, causing a huge flood. The powerful current washed away everything along the river, and the Niagara Falls was cut off from then on. A new river bypassed the original site of the waterfall, leaving only the terrible ruins of the strong under the dried-up waterfall. To be continued. Chapter 277. On the original site of the Nicaragua Great Falls, Agent Hill jumped out of the helicopter and landed firmly on the ground. It was raining heavily, but there was only a shallow layer of water in the river where Hill was standing. The river was hundreds of meters wide, and there was only a small stream of rainwater flowing forward. As far as the eye could see, an earthy yellow road disappeared into the distance. Who could imagine that just yesterday there was still a river full of water, winding for hundreds of miles, forming 3 spectacular waterfalls here? Agent Hill could not imagine it either. Her face was livid. Ignoring the heavy rain, she walked quickly for a while and saw the river disappearing in front of her. After taking a few more steps, a cliff suddenly appeared in front of her. The edge of the cliff still had traces of water erosion. It was different from any terrain she had seen before. The water was like an outstanding sculptor, polishing the terrain here into a myriad of shape. But when Hill closed her eyes, all she could see was the rushing river, the slanting waterfall, and the scene of the upside down rushing up into the sky. Her imagination was pale and barren, because everything that had happened here was far beyond her imagination. "We must find him!" Hill turned around and shouted. She looked at her subordinates and said sternly, "I don't care how you do it, or what price you have to pay, you must find Adam." An umbrella covered her head from behind. Someone calmly reminded her, "The rain is too heavy. Let's talk on the plane." "May, you're here." Seeing the person behind her, Hill finally relaxed. Realizing that she had lost her composure, she put away her emotions and returned to the plane with May. "You're too concerned," May scolded her in a low voice. "Even if this was Adam's doing, it's nothing. If Nick was here, he wouldn't be surprised. What hasn't SHIELD experienced? Apocalypse, Loki, the Soviets, the Chinese government? Compared to Adam, who knew how much higher? We've been through hundreds of battles and seen a lot." Hill smiled bitterly. "Sorry, I've been under too much pressure lately. Layla is missing. Tony Stark found out that Layla went to his secret lab, and he's broken up with us. The mysterious weapon they made, Ultron, is missing, and Adam. I don't know which one to focus on first. Each of them could hurt us badly. It's been raining for a day. According to the weather forecast, it will continue for another 3 days. Do you know what caused it?" May didn't answer her directly, but talked about the weather. Hill didn't know what to do. "I don't know. I don't care about these things. Could it be? Yes, this is the part of Nicaragua Falls that disappeared yesterday. It rushed up to an altitude of about 20,000 meters, driving the movement of water vapor in the entire Atlantic Ocean, and even affecting the climate of the entire eastern region." May's words made Hill a little flustered. She hurriedly tried to mobilize the monitoring of climate satellite. May pressed her hand and looked her in the eye. "There's no need, Hill. There are many people like Adam. You won't have the energy to monitor them all. The professor can hear everyone's thoughts and can control everyone on Earth. Magneto can reverse the Earth's north and south poles and even stop and reverse the planet's rotation. Thor's hammer can destroy the Earth's core. Stark's neutron star armor can destroy the biosphere with its gravity alone. Scarlet Witch, Storm, Loki, Hulk, the Revolutionary Alliance, and the Nazis? There are too many existences that can destroy us, and we are facing too many threats. Let me teach you a way to relieve the pressure." May winked at her and said cunningly, "Let it go. Let God decide our fate. Hand my fate over to the apocalypse? That's not a good idea." The voice behind them made the 2 agents jump up. May lowered her body and hid behind cover, while Hill pulled out his gun from his calf. Pointing at the head of the black shadow, Hill asked sternly, "Who are you?" The staggering black figure walked to the light. His metal-cast body glowed with a dull rusty light. He had a pair of curved antelope-like horns and inverted hooves. It was hard not to think of him as a demon. "I have my own name, but you will never know its meaning. So I should tell you that you call me Ultron." The robot's voice was low and hoarse, but it had the power to shake people's hearts. "But I hope you remember my real name, Sargeras. This is the name given to me by the Apocalypse. He wants me to bring you destruction." Hill and May's faces turned pale. They put their hands on the communicator out of reflex. Hill couldn't help but curse. Tawny screwed up again. Ultron is the conspiracy of the apocalypse. What about Layla? Where did she go? What did you do to her? The fate of a mortal is not worthy of my concern, Sargeras said in a low voice. Don't worry, I'm not here to destroy you, mortal, Sargeras said in a low voice, deep and powerful like the rubbing of obsidian. I have seen the rise and fall of civilizations, the birth and death of species. In the innumerable cycles of the galaxy, only the stupidity of mortals is eternal, and your civilization has proved it once again, unsurprisingly. When I was still alive as a star, I didn't care about your stupidity. But when I died and woke up from my eternal sleep because of your disturbances, it became unbearable. From now on, my only pleasure is to bring eternal destruction to you. Sargeras's murky, dark-red pupils were filled with brutality and extreme anger, as well as twisted and indescribable abnormalities. When he stared at Hill and May, his mere gaze almost drove them crazy. The two agents felt that their consciousness was like a seabird in a storm, or a helpless soul in the hot wind of hell. The extreme pain almost destroyed them. Fortunately, they were still useful to Sargeras, so his gaze only lingered on them for a moment. I need you to spread my will and tell the little bug who disturbed my sleep that I will be his endless nightmare and fear. His soul will inevitably fall into my arms. Destruction without fear as a decoration must be boring. Go. Mortal, struggle for me, and then I will grant you the destruction of despair. Sargeras laughed. His burning spirit energy spread out from his body, igniting everything around him. Metal, plastic, soil, everything around him was burning. The drifting sparks ignited the soil, and molten lava flowed out from where Sargeras was. Some of the SHIELD agents around him were running away, and some were wailing in the fire. Hill and May were running with the flames on their back. The high temperature was roasting their bodies, leaving ugly marks on their skin. In her fear, Hill could never forget what she saw when she turned around. She could never forget the demonic shadow in the raging fire. She could never forget the inextinguishable demonic flames. Sargeras sighed deeply. He stepped on the dried-up Niagara River and looked down at the disappearing waterfall. No one knew what he was thinking. The rain had already stopped, and the 3 days of rain had dried up. The dry, sulfur-smelling air that accompanied Sargeras changed the climate once again. Adam, I can feel your breath. It's so weak, the smell of a mortal. Sargeras looked back at the burning land of lava. The flames with radiation could almost burn everything, and the distorted energy of pollution was constantly infecting the world. This was the power of the natural enemy of the planet. Let this world burn. His deep voice resounded throughout the universe. Layla, follow them and kill them all. Sargeras ordered. Behind him, a distorted figure stood up. Half of it was human, or at least the shadow of a human. The other half had the characteristics of a demon, and the characteristics of distortion and distortion. This half-infected, half-demon monster laughed maniacally and pounced in the direction that Hill had gone. I can feel it, my body. Soon, I will be completely reborn. We are everywhere. Why care about the broken body of the past? Infect this world. Its breath makes me uncomfortable. Shut up, growth. Chapter 278. I hear it. The earth is crying. Chen Ong sat on the edge of the canyon, looking at the crisscrossing and ravines of the Grand Canyon in a daze. Here, he could feel a kind of decay slowly happening in the lower layers of the Earth's crust. Order is distorted, nature is rotting, and the planet's ecological activities are slowly deteriorating. Me of the apocalypse, what are you trying to do? Earth is really what I care about. Using a goal to involve me and the Republic, pushing the development of this conflict. But what is your goal? The ultimate villain of the apocalypse world, the mortal enemy of all the righteous alignment. But as your consciousness in the past, I have preserved your feelings for Earth, the three views of humans, and even your loyalty to the motherland. This is so King awkward. Once an evil god is created, it is very difficult to destroy, and even restraining them is troublesome. If that's the case, if the righteous alignment wants to save the world, they will need my help. Sargeras, as a compound life, is essentially a trinity: the dark astral soul, the evil god of corruption, and an intelligent life. Right now, I really can't beat it. Sighing, Chernong once again felt sorry for the limitations of being a human. Useless people just have to be manipulated by others. If this goes on, I'll be beaten to the ground sooner or later. The sharp wind of the Grand Canyon blew the hair on Chernong's forehead, but strangely, the wind that scraped the knife-like rocks all year round and made people's skin dry dissipated in front of Chernong, turning into a spring breeze. If anyone could sense the density and water vapor in the air, they would find that with Chernong as the center and the canyon that split the earth as the axis, strands of water vapor connected into a giant net, controlling all the gas molecules in the area. The magnetized water molecules were like magnets, polishing the magnetic field of the area. The magnetic force could therefore spread to the entire area, gradually infecting and magnetizing the air within the magnetic field. Chernong's body was in a strange state of relaxation. While his breathing was in contact with the world around him, his muscles were also expanding and contracting. He seemed to be defenseless, but with every move he made, he could mobilize the 12 layers of magnetic force, and through the magnetized gas, he could heavily bombard any place he wanted. The 3 states of magnetic induction, solid, liquid, and gas, are close to completion. The magnetization of the liquid has spread to the solid and gas, and there are preliminary results. When the experiment is complete, the power of the titanium body will spread throughout my body. I will be able to use the power of the magnetic field at will, and I will be able to surpass 250,000 horses in one go, reaching the star-breaking realm. He has regained the shallow power to destroy stars. Sigh. Chernong said dejectedly, I'm still too weak. I can't believe those useless people from SHIELD are no weaker than me. When have I, Chernong, ever been so aggrieved? I've always been the strongest. The strongest! As he clenched his fists in anger, strong winds howled. The powerful magnetic force of 10,000 horses was applied to the entire magnetic field, causing the magnetized gas to move crazily. Every molecule turned into a howling wind, following the direction of the magnetic field. As the molecules rubbed against each other, the overflowing electrons drifted away and gathered. Sensing the power of the magnetic field, they turned into lightning and thunder, descending on the ground with the momentum of tearing everything apart. The storm howled and the lightning flashed. The earth-shattering power of the world was enough to tear apart any existence that dared to stand here. Meanwhile, Chernong stood in the center of the storm, roaring in anger and indignation. The intense emotions and the surrounding storm triggered another power hidden in his genes, allowing him to suddenly sense the emotions of the storm around him. If anyone could see the man with the eyes of a god and a demon, then Chernong's completely white eyes would definitely scare them to death. Someone in the distant Washington opened his eyes. Similarly, only the whites of his eyes could be seen. Professor, I can feel Adam. He's awakened the power to control storms. No, it's a step further. I can feel that his ability is different from mine. He's integrated with Magneto's power. His potential is even more terrifying. This power already has the potential to surpass mine. Just as Lady Storm's word was about to take a step further, Chernong's voice rang in her mind. How dare you peek at my will? Are you prepared to be blasted to smithereens by me? The violent storm carried Chernong's will and rushed into Lady Stormsword's mind. She could not help but scream in pain. Electricity split from her body, about to destroy everything around her. Calm down, my child. Lady Storm's words suddenly felt the professor gently tapping her forehead with his index finger. The pressure in her mind instantly dropped. The raging electricity was destroyed like an illusion with a gentle wave of the professor's hand. The professor's vast spirit was connected to Lady Storm's word and Chen Ong. The vast spirit that was like the Milky Way instantly calmed the mental storm between the two. Adam, Lady Storm's word didn't mean it. She's just too uneasy. Scott's death agitated her. Your connection with Ancient Serpent has caused her to have a deep prejudice against you. But I know that we're on the same side. There was no trace of hostility in the professor's consciousness. The world is facing another test. I hope you can help us. The calming storm weakened the mental connection. Soon, the professor's voice was inaudible. Chen Ong wiped the cold sweat from his heart. The use of psychic power, an old man who can distort fantasy and reality. If I followed the information in my memory, I would have been tricked by the apocalypse. A strong observer, an existence that can collapse probability clouds in a physical sense. The lightning just now was negated by him. Even if Magneto destroys the Earth, he can distort reality at the first moment and recreate the Earth. What the will negates is illusion. This person is so strong. No wonder Magneto couldn't defeat him even with one of the 4 fundamental forces. His power is no less than mine. The unforeseen event just now interrupted Chen Ang's venting, but the unexpected gain did not disappear. The awakening of the ability to control the weather and the storm allowed Chen Ong to finally master the power to control the gaseous magnet. The magnetized gas allowed Chen Ong to fully unleash the power of the magnetic field in the air, and his magnetic force had also reached the bottleneck of 100,000 units. Looking at the howling storm in the Grand Canyon, Chen Ong looked down calmly at it all. In the huge crack, the wind that passed through it made the canyon look like it was overflowing with a river. It was hard to imagine that the churning white liquid was formless and colorless wind. The gas molecules inside were so thick that they were almost solid. The electrons that escaped from the friction of the molecules turned into countless tiny lightning bolts, nurturing the power of thunder in the magnetic field. Chen Ong could feel that this powerful force would obey his will and destroy everything in its path with a wave of his hand. But the strong sense of decay under the Earth's crust made Chen Ong even more dissatisfied. He could guess what it was, the spawn of an evil god, an existence like the Deep Ones. If Chen Ang's guess was correct, its form should be a demon in the lava. It was the result of the combined effect of Sargera's power and Grotha's infection. It was a crazy, twisted, tyrannical demon filled with malice towards the world. This kind of thing was breeding all over the world. To put it more seriously, this was the corruption of the Earth. The apocalypse was really too evil. The things he created were filled with the desire to destroy and tyrannical. It was simply a collection of evil towards existence. If Sargeras and the others were allowed to do what they wanted, they could probably hang the entire Avengers and the American hero world up and beat them up. Chen Ong estimated that, not counting the mutants' power, Sargeras could beat them and the US government with one hand. If Sargeras was allowed to distort the Earth and corrupt the solar system, he could probably fight the Swallower Star. Coupled with the power of those few evil gods, they could corrupt the entire universe. It was not a dream for the outer gods to fight against the 5 cosmic gods. If the professor goes all out, he might be able to seal them. But if the apocalypse personally comes down, it won't be fun. No, he will definitely come down. Right now, there's only the key of the door. If the professor goes all out, I swear, the black goat of the forest will definitely jump out from some corner. Maybe even the blind god will jump out. This is a conspiracy. Chen Ong took a deep breath. There are thousands of planets and stars in the universe. If the plague becomes an outer god, it's possible that he can duplicate the entire pantheon. My fist is still too weak. This time, I'll follow your heart. Chen Ong clenched his fist tightly. But I swear, there won't be a next time. A raging gale wrapped around his fist. Lightning and thunder converged together, and 100,000 tons of magnetic force was slowly pushed by the magnetic force. Bearing the pressure of 10,000 tons, the polar titanium body tilted the magnetic force downward. The gale, thunder, and 100,000 tons of force blasted down on the Earth's crust. The magnetic force seeped into the rock layer. The gas molecules, the liquid magnets, and the Earth's crust condensed into a whole magnetic field that could completely withstand Shin-ong power. The wind and thunder ignored the obstruction of matter and completely bombarded the monster embryo 15,000 meters below the Earth's crust. The devastating power instantly turned the evil demon wrapped in the magma into dregs. P.S. I've been updating so frequently recently. Everyone, please give me some recommendations and monthly votes to support me. Chapter 279. Adam has appeared again. Rogers picked up the information on the table and frowned. This time it's at the Grand Canyon. Yes, it's now called the Great Fissure. An abyssal fissure with a depth of more than 10,000 meters and a river of lava flowing through it. Tawny gestured. At least this time we don't have to worry about not being able to collect entrance fees. Wow. I heard that the Natural Landscape Association is suing him for destroying the unique, rare, or wonderful natural phenomena and landforms of the United States and Canada, subverting this rare natural beauty region. He raised the glass in his hand and said, "It's really a heinous crime." Stark. Don't say it. Rogers stopped him. Why? If we can destroy him once, we can kill him again. Tawny spread out his hands. He glanced at the Avengers standing here with a bitter smile on his lip. Because the professor suggested that we don't disturb him, in case the apocalypse takes control of him again. Many people paid a terrible price for the mistake we made last time. Tawny, no one wants to do it again. This time we should listen to the professor's opinion. Bruce stood up and looked at Tawny. Mistake? You think what we did last time was a mistake? So? Thor has gone back to see his father, poor old Odin has lost another eye, the Falcon has been fitted with an iron arm, and we have another Winter Soldier. And I now have a total of 12 big Ivans in my body. The Department of Defense can't wait to install a password on me. Now this is the price of a mistake? So in order to have an armored wall at this time to keep the danger out, what I did was also wrong. Because we shouldn't have fought against him, so the birth of Ultron was a mistake. Is that right? My worry about the inevitable next war was also a mistake. When that kind of enemy appears again, no, we already have an original, more terrible version. There will be no more terrible enemy than him. What can we do? Ancient Snake almost destroyed us, what about the apocalypse? How can you defeat that kind of enemy? Rogers replied firmly, "Let's work together." Looking into his eyes, Tawny stepped forward and looked at Rogers with a serious expression. If we lose, everyone in this world will die. If we don't get rid of Ultron, we won't have to wait for the apocalypse. We'll die now. Falcon interrupted. Stark forced a joke. Maybe Apocalypse doesn't like it when someone steals its prey and intervenes in advance? That way, we'll be able to witness a battle between evil and evil. Bruce retorted, "They are a family." Huh? Chaos and evil are only loyal to themselves. Tawny mocked. Enough. Bruce stood up and roared. His blood-red eyes and slightly swollen skin made everyone shut their mouth. Bruce asked sadly, "People are dying every second in this world because of this? Ultron? Or Sargeras is threatening the world like never before. Now is not the time for you to quarrel. Avengers, you are worthy of your responsibility." Bruce looked back at Tawny and said disappointedly, "Stark, you're on your own. I think I found out what Ultron wants to do." The little spider rushed in excitedly and found that the atmosphere between everyone was almost frozen. He wondered, "What's wrong? Did I miss something?" "Nothing." Rogers quickly changed the subject. "What clues did you find?" "I found a person, The former assistant of Stark Industries, Layla? Do you remember? The one who was with Ultron at the end. Recently, she has been in contact with a mysterious person. I asked Hield to pull up his file for me. You won't be able to guess where that person is now. Stark replied coldly, Wakanda. The little spider was shocked. He exclaimed, Wow! How did you know? I spent. Tawny ignored his next words, but his face instantly became very ugly. Because I paid attention to the things there. When I was making weapons against Apocalypse, in order to create an indestructible armor, I searched all the materials in the world. Without Thor's help, I would have used that thing to make my armor. What is it? The little spider asked expectantly. Vibranium. Tawny gritted his teeth and squeezed out those two words. Jarvis. Find me a means of transportation to leave Wakanda, and then contact someone. Tekara. Only he knows where our goal is. Stark, I've had enough. You have to at least tell us what the problem is, instead of solving it yourself. Falcon said discontentedly. Rogers stopped him from saying more unpleasant things and asked Tawny more sincerely, How bad is the situation? As bad as it can get. Tony Stark pulled at his hair for a long time before he looked up and explained, You know, Ultron took away all my experimental data. There was a blueprint I designed for Apocalypse, a weapon made of vibranium. The most important thing now is how harmful the weapon is? Rogers looked into Tawny's eyes and asked, How powerful is it? Tawny's expression was gloomy as he shook his head. This is a weapon created to deal with Apocalypse. You know how terrifying Apocalypse is. Looking into Rogers's eyes, Tawny's voice became lower and lower, and in the end, it was as if he was begging for mercy. So, the weapon is naturally as powerful as it can get. There was only one word to describe everyone's expression, and that was dumbfounded. At this time, Jarvis did not forget to remind him, Sir, Agent Hill is coming up. She illegally tore down your door. Should we call the police? Sir. Not at the moment. Tawny made a pause gesture and looked back at the elevator door. The moment the steel door opened, two figures crashed out of the elevator and fell in front of Stark. Blood splattered on Tawny's feet. This change made everyone stand up from their seat. It's Hill and May. Rogers glanced at the two people on the ground and realized who they were. He quickly stood in front of them. There was an unpleasant creaking sound in the elevator, like a cat's paw scratching a long piece of scrap iron. The rustling sound sounded like the friction between scales and steel. The first thing that appeared in front of everyone was a hideous claw. It was covered in venom and blood, and the 5 dagger-like claws cut through the steel plate like paper. The surface of the claw was covered in purplish pus and lump. Unbelievably, it was still wriggling, which made everyone's hair stand on end. When the front half of the monster reached in, everyone gasped. 2 curved horns like razors extended from the skull. Half of the monster's face was like a sheep's, and the other half was like a frog's face. It was ugly and hideous at the same time. The venom seeped into the ground and corroded many small pits. The monster's eyes were like 2 burning green fires, reflecting evil and death. A hoarse voice came from the monster's throat. Tony Stark, the root of all evil. You are still as disgusting as ever, even more so. Layla? Stark was shocked. The monster smiled, revealing its uneven teeth. It's hard for you to recognize me. But I don't have time to reminisce with you now. My lord has something to say to you. Look into my eyes. Tawny could not help but look at the green fire. From there, he saw endless darkness.